What's up, y'all? Welcome to episode 29 of the CVD podcast, where we are creating a mentally healthier world, one open, honest, and vulnerable conversation at a time. I am your host, Adam Beaumier, and I am super happy that you're spending some time with me today. This episode 29, is Coffee Date episode number 2. So if you don't know what a coffee date is, our coffee dates are, that's totally fine. You can either jump back to Coffee Date episode number 1, which we released last week, and you can check that one out to get a little bit more context, or you can continue listening because I go in depth a little bit at the beginning of the episode to tell you a little bit about what our coffee dates are and why we started them. But in a general sense, a coffee date is something between me and my wife, Shelby, that we do pretty much every Friday, where we just check in with each other to make sure that we are doing okay spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically, and to really bring up anything that is on our mind and to really just check in with each other and make sure that we are being the best partner that we can be and to really hold each other accountable to some of our goals and aspirations. So that's an overview of what our coffee dates are. These episodes are basically letting you in on one of our coffee dates. So the episode last week that we released was basically covered the first year of our marriage. And this episode, which we are releasing today, is year 2 in review. So we take a look back at everything that's happened over the last 365 days because a lot has changed. We go into detail about a lot. If you look at the episode, you know that it's a long one. We review an entire year and a lot happened. We essentially moved from Boston to the middle of Alabama. And when we tell people that, they're like, why the fuck did you do that? And there are hundreds of reasons for that. But essentially, we moved from Boston. We were kind of both working in like corporate jobs. Me, not so much, but Shelby was working a corporate job. I was involved in a number of things. And we honestly just weren't in a great place mentally or emotionally. And things were just really taking a toll on us. We were in a tight spot financially. And so we decided to basically pay $10,000 to leave Boston and to move to the middle of Alabama into a home that's been in Shelby's family for 30 years to basically pursue our passions. And we hear this all the time on the internet, and I'm sure you've heard it as well, where people take big risks to pursue their passions. Well, we have done that. We've been living that the last 365 days. We're going to continue doing that because it's fucking amazing. And this conversation between us is just another open, honest, and vulnerable conversation about all of the changes that have happened the last 365 days. And we have this conversation. We share this conversation because we just want to put another example out there of what somebody goes through, what a couple goes through. We talk about some of the things we go through as individuals. We talk about how the things that we went through as a couple and how we communicated through those times and how we supported each other. And we're putting it out there just in hopes that it helps or inspires somebody somewhere around the world to approach things maybe just a little bit differently, right? It's not about what's right or wrong. It's just about, here's an example. Do with it what you will. We've gotten a lot of feedback already, a lot of great feedback already from the first Coffee Date episode that we released. So to all of you that have listened to that one, huge shout out to you guys. And for anybody that has taken the time to either send us a message or a voice message or a video or to tag us in a story or a post related to that first Coffee Date, that means the world to us. Like our souls like get lit up when we hear about how our content can be and our story can be potentially helpful to somebody out there. So if you give this episode a listen, which I hope you do, and you enjoy it, please consider leaving a review on whatever podcasting platform you're listening to, or if you're watching it on YouTube, leave us a comment there and let us know what you think. Or our contact information is in the description of this episode. You can always send us a DM on Instagram and just let us know how this made you think or feel differently, and how this episode is helpful, because that means a lot to us, and it is a great way to just put a little bit more fuel in the tank to keep going, because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. All right, settle in, and I hope you enjoy. Awesome. Alrighty, well, Coffee Date podcast.
Number 2.
Are you excited?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. Awesome. Well, let's start this off like we start off every single one of our coffee dates, with a cookie. And I obviously dip the best.
I don't like your dipping styles.
I know you don't. I dip the entire thing in there. And then just eat the cookie all in one bite. You're like,
why?
Because I want all the flavors. I want it all.
But you want it all at once. How are you supposed to savor the flavor?
I savor it by getting it all at once.
Oh my gosh. Oh no! I dropped a cookie.
See, and I avoid crumbling.
You have to crumble every once in a while. You can build back stronger. Not that it applies to this cookie, but it'll apply to my life.
Mike dropping 15 seconds into the into the episode. I like it. So for anybody that's listening that doesn't know, Shelby and I do these coffee dates every single Friday. It's something that we started pretty early in our relationship. I think we started it back in 2019, actually. At the end of 2019 or the start of 2020, when we were doing long distance, because I was living in Boston and you were living in San Francisco. And when we were doing long distance, it was, we were just busy with our own thing during the day, and we wanted to make sure that we had, time every week to really check in with each other and to see how each other were doing. So we started by doing, I think it was like a 3-hour thing every week, where it was like, all right, on whatever day it was, I think it might have been Saturday, we have 3 hours to actually just, nothing else is scheduled in our calendars. Like, this time is blocked off for me and you to have a coffee date. We wanted to make sure that we prioritize that.
Yep.
Yeah, so.
And that was interesting doing it because there was like a 4-hour time difference between us?
3.
3?
Yeah.
With you being in Boston and me being in
San
Francisco. San Francisco.
Yeah, so there was a 3-hour time difference, and again, it's just kind of like, if we didn't schedule it, it wouldn't happen. As great as our intentions would be to have a coffee date or to catch up with each other every week, it was like we just needed to make sure it was in the calendar, in the schedule, blocked off. This is our sacred time. Nothing else can interfere with this time. It's ours.
That is right.
And so that's something that we started when we were doing long distance, and it hasn't been something that has been, it's not something that we've done throughout our relationship, like all the time, because we have gone through periods where we don't do it. But when we do that, we realize that it's like, man, we miss those days. Like, we miss that time to just really check in with each other.
Yeah, it usually ended up in me having a mental breakdown, being like, I miss you.
I don't feel like I'm close to you. We're not connected.
Yeah.
And it was like, what does this boil down to? And we're like, oh yeah, we haven't done our coffee date in like 6 weeks. Like, no wonder why we're sort of missing that, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it basically came down to, at least for me on my end, it was, I needed uninterrupted, scheduled time together where you and I connected. No phones, no screens, no people, no calls. I mean, like, my phone was there, and our phones are there for emergencies. But, I mean, it was really just, hey, I want time that's, like, not interrupted and not capped.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we want to sit and talk for 4 hours, or if we want to sit and talk all day, like, I wanted that, and I needed that, because if it wasn't there, or if every time it's like, oh, we only have 2 hours, and we finally get into, like, a deep conversation, and then it was like, oh, I'm sorry, it's only been 2 hours, and I got stuff to do, it angered me.
Oh, I remember we did have a couple times like that, and you were just like, Adam, I want unlimited time.
Yep.
So so nowadays, like, it's in our calendar every Friday morning from like 6 a.m. to noon.
Yeah.
So there is an end point, but I mean, it's 6 hours. It's the entire morning to basically, wake up slow, cuddle, have coffee, sit on the couch, and literally just talk about whatever comes to mind. And if there's anything that that's important that we kind of put off during the week. Because I mean, like, the one thing I want to make clear to anybody who's listening is that, like, we didn't like avoid deep conversations like throughout the week. It was more of that time. Like, sometimes, for example, on a Tuesday, if I did something that pissed you off, you'd sit there and try to internalize it and really understand, like, okay, why did this make me angry? Like, is it anger that I am feeling, or is it something else? And, you know, you'd think about it for a couple of days, and when you're ready to talk about it, either you'd talk about it with me during the middle of the week, but Fridays was always, our coffee dates are always that sacred time where nothing is off limits, and we can really just chat about anything. And it's like, what's great from my perspective on it is that it's like this time where we know that there are going to be deep conversations. So it's like, listen, like, we're doing this to invest in ourselves as individuals, and ourselves and us as a couple. And so, like, the defenses are completely down, right? And it's not like defenses are ever like fully up. You know, it's not like I ever think that that you have ill intentions or anything, but it's just like, you know, in the heat of the moment, sometimes during the week when we're busy and doing this and that or whatever, and you say something or I say something, like, our defenses might just kind of peak up naturally.
Yeah. Oh, a big one is like the little tasks. So like doing laundry or something. You know, it's like, I can remember specifically when we were in Boston, because of my work schedule in Boston, you would get really frustrated sometimes because it would only feel like I was the one, or you would get really frustrated because you would feel like you were the only one, like, doing the house chores at some point. And then finally you'd get to this point during our coffee dates, because you wouldn't blow up with me during the week, but I could see the frustration, and you would try to take a second because, like, there's no goal there to have ill intentions. But during coffee dates, it would come up being like, I need you to just put the clothes in the washing machine. And I would be like, I'm so sorry. I do need to do that. Like, I do need to participate in the house chores and not just default and say, oh, I've had a long week, or, oh, I've had a long day. And that keeps me from, like, participating in the things that need to get done.
Yeah, 100%.
We have come a long way since then.
Yeah, we definitely have. So we have a coffee date every Friday now. It's literally in our calendars from 6 to noon every single Friday. It's not every Friday that we do a podcast episode.
No.
Not like this. So
This is special.
And we celebrated our 2-year wedding anniversary 4 days ago. It is the 7th today, as of recording. It is the 7th. Our wedding anniversary is on
the 3rd. I always have to think about it because our engagement is 3-2-2-1, and our wedding anniversary is 4-3-2-1. But you don't know how many times I go 4-3-2-1. Like, okay, wait, where's the 3? Is 3 the day?
I do the same thing. But yeah, so we got married 2 years ago, April 3rd, 2021. So this is essentially, you know, our second wedding anniversary was like 4 days ago. And we've basically made it a tradition to do a podcast like on or near our wedding anniversary, to basically just document what marriage has been like for us, to just kind of do like a 1-year review. And every time we sit down to do this, I'm like, man, we should do this more often. I love doing these. Like, they're so much fun. But yeah, we basically every year just sit down and record a podcast episode like this. So we do have coffee date number 1 that's going to be released a week before this one. So go watch that one, then watch this one. But yeah, essentially a big reason why we wanted to document this was for ourselves. I mean, like, it's a great reflection point, but it's also like, we didn't really find a ton of podcasts or resources or anything that talk a lot about like the first, you know, X number of years of marriage, like marriage for a young couple. So
no one really records this part. Like, we found that it was always the most difficult piece of information to gather from people. Like, people would give anyone that you talk to, most people that you will talk to or ask for marriage advice or ask for relationship advice, they've already been in it for a couple of years, or they've been in it for a few years, like 5 plus, 10 plus, 20, 30 plus. And they give you these really, like, I would say big goals, you know, like spend time together, don't go to bed angry. And all of those things are really, really important. But there's a transition piece when you get married, I think, for most couples, in those first 5 years, and each year really builds on its own because you're learning how to coexist in a different way. Because I don't care what anybody says, the moment the word marriage and married and husband and wife really enter into the space, things just shift a little. And it's all, I think, a little subconscious, because I would still say you and I are exactly who we are when we dated. Like, we still date and we still act like we're dating. It's not like that hasn't changed, but the dynamic between us once marriage came in, it just puts a different umbrella, I guess. So, and no one could give us like a backstory, information, or people were really hesitant to share like those stories, because sometimes you go through a lot of stuff early on, and you don't realize, and a lot of couples also don't want to talk about it, because that's the hard part, you know? Like, some people hit that mark at different points for different reasons, and sometimes multiple times. But that first couple years of transition.
Yeah, and so in the first episode that we did, we covered our first year of marriage, including actually going to like Las Vegas to elope. We talked about some of the intimacy issues and financial issues that we were having as well, because that was a big challenge for us. And we talked about some of the tools that we have really used over the years to make sure that, you know, we're always sort of investing in each other and checking in. So a tool like Coffee Date, for example. So in this episode, kind of reviewing our second year, if you watch the first episode on YouTube, obviously we're in a very different setting.
Very different. Look at these green trees. I mean, for anyone that is listening and not watching, I mean, we are on my front porch of my family home in the middle of Alabama, and we are surrounded by just green trees, pine trees, you know, dogwood, everything. There's a pond over here if you can hear the frogs. Like, I mean, it's just so different from Boston. Yeah.
So in the first episode, we were living in Boston at the time. So we were in a 900 square foot apartment, and now we're in a house that is on 60 acres of land. So just a little bit more space than we had when we were in Boston. And so we're going to get into how and why we made that move, how crazy the last, and how and why we made that move, including like the big sort of mental piece to it, because a huge reason why we moved out of Boston was just our mental health. So we're going to get into that. We're going to get into sort of how we moved last year in August. So we're going to kind of talk about the last 5 months of 2022 as well, because we were running around like crazy. So we're going to talk about like the great things that came from that, and also just the challenges of that. And then we're going to get into sort of how we've really built a lot of momentum in 2023 so far, for our businesses and for our mindset. Like, we've had a lot of mindset shifts, which has been huge for us, and we've been building a lot of momentum for our businesses, and we're just in a completely different space. So I think that's essentially what we're going to go over. And just to kind of preface this, 6 weeks ago, we sat down and we were looking at our bank accounts, and we were like, we have, in my checking account, Shelby's checking account, and her savings account, everything combined, we had like $1,300. Like, we had like $1,300, and our monthly expenses are pretty much that.
Yeah.
So we're like, all right, we have 1 month left of, we can cover things for 1 month. And normally, you know, we've gone through our own financial struggles, but we looked at that number and we were like, we got $1,300 in our bank account, but fuck, we are happy as hell right now. Like, we are so thrilled with how things are going and what will come. And it was really this inflection point where we were like, man, we should talk about this. Like, we should really like just sit down, talk about it, and really sort of document the journey for ourselves and talk about it with other people, because where we were last year and where we are now is just completely different. And I think it's important to go over.
100%.
Like I said, 6 weeks ago, $1,300 in our account, but we're happy as hell. It
was weird. I can remember sitting on the couch talking about it.
Oh, we were out here.
Oh, we were out.
Yeah,
here.
we were on the swing.
We were sitting down talking about it. And either way, it was I wouldn't say a euphoric moment, but it was just like this big epiphany that when you put yourself in the right environment, there's a lot of things that a lot of other things can be at their worst state, but you can still find just like that internal happiness, knowing that you're on so much of a better path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. And like, we're just doing things that we know are going to lead us through fulfillment. Like it's already fulfilling. And it was this moment of just like, man, we know, like in our souls almost, that we're doing the right thing, and that we're doing things that we want to do, things that fulfill us, things that just allow us to breathe life into ourselves, basically. Mm-hmm. So like the money's tight, don't get me wrong, and we're like, fuck, we gotta like make some stuff happen. But I mean, we are in a position where we're like, okay, like over the next 3 months or so, like we are going to begin to make, more money from the things that we're doing. But like the fulfillment piece was there. So it was kind of like, fuck, money's tight, but like we're good, man. Like we're fucking good. We're in a good spot, and like we're going to continue down this path because we're doing things that fulfill us and things that we are passionate about.
Yeah. And that feeling didn't come right away either. I mean, like we have lived here for now, let's see, we moved
8 months.
Yeah, I was supposed to say we moved in August, and I mean, it took 7 months, about 7 months before we really started to feel and see the momentum shift.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a big reason why we're going to cover like the last 5 months of last year, because like it wasn't just we moved here and all of a sudden, woohoo, we're good. Like everything is automatically better. I mean, like there was definitely like a big relief to moving here, but it wasn't all of a sudden like, boom, we have this momentum, boom, everything's great. And like we're on our way to, being completely fulfilled. It was just like, it was a big step. Don't get me wrong. It was a big step, but things just didn't happen instantly. They took a lot of time. And obviously we still have a lot of work to do, but
yeah. Can I go ahead and give a quick like recap of like leading into the summer when we decided to move? Can I give a quick recap from my point of view?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can. I was going to go back like basically a year and talk about like the big like mental peace struggles that were happening then, and then kind of go into the summer. But if you want to give a summary first.
Yeah, I just want to go ahead and give like a little bit of a timeline. So I'll even go back all the way to, I would even say
probably February 2022, or are you thinking further?
I was going to say just a little bit further. So Christmas of 2021, our roommates had to leave. They had to go back to Belgium, and we had to get out of our lease. And it was very abrupt. It was very immediate. Thankfully, the building that we lived in was the same company that I worked at, and they were able to help us out with the moving out costs, because in Boston there are moving out costs if you are renting, especially in an apartment building. Mm-hmm. So we find another apartment, which was an immediate increase to our expenses because we were originally splitting rent, and now we were taking on an apartment that was smaller and increased in price. Yeah,
like one of the big reason why we were even living with them in the first place was, I mean, COVID was happening and we were able to split rent, so we were paying like $1,600 a month for rent with them. And then when they very suddenly had to leave, our rent was going to go up to like $2,700 if we got a 1-bedroom in the same building. Yep. So we basically made a move and we're paying like $2,150. So it's still like almost a $600 increase a month to live in this new place.
Yeah. So we find another apartment, we move in a snowstorm. Then we move, we're in this new apartment, fast forward to February, and there was an active shooter at my apartment building that I was working at. Yeah. And that kind of, I guess, opened a can of worms that I didn't know or realize. And it sent me into a very difficult mentally and emotional place. And it was difficult. I was on the phone with an inspector calling on a completely different issue, just seeking some information. And on that call, before I'm even telling him anything, he says, 911's on their way to you. there's an active shooter at your building. You need to seek shelter. And he hung up the phone on me. And come to find out, my boss had actually received a call from a resident, and she was the one also. And so, like, there was two of them basically calling 911 at the same time. So that went on all day. And then leading into the next few weeks, it was a lot. There was a lot of people that were, no one was injured, but there was a lot of people with a lot of questions. And I worked at the front of the office. So it was stressful and a lot. Like, it was just a lot. Then we got a cat and we got Roma.
Yeah.
And then fast forward, it was just, things were tight. I wasn't happy with my job. You were starting, had you left?
No, not yet.
Not yet?
No.
So there was this big transition piece in like leading up to our coffee date, and even just a little bit past that. I was not happy doing what I was doing. I wasn't feeling fulfilled, and I wasn't feeling good about being in Boston. Like, I was just tired all the time. And then basically leading up to that, we had started having conversations of, well, what if we leave? Like, what if we move? Like, what if we move to another city? What if we do that? And all of these other things came up. And we had talked about it for a couple months before we made the decision to move. Yeah.
And yeah, so do you want to get into detail, or do you want to give an overview?
I would say just do an overview, because it's a lot of detail.
Yeah, it is a lot of detail. But yeah, so we talked for a little while about moving out because, like you said, the shooting was a huge trigger point, and it just brought up so much stuff that you like unexpectedly, and you kind of started going through started therapy, and it was very helpful. But it was like, okay, there's a lot to sort of unpack, things that have come up. And so, like you said, mentally and emotionally, you weren't in the best spot. I had been working from home for like an entire year at that point, because after we got married in 2021, we started the green card process. And for anybody that doesn't know, when you're doing that green card process, they told me that I couldn't work in the US until I got my green card, but I also couldn't leave the country. So I was basically just,
you're stuck here.
I'm stuck, just sitting there, kind of waiting. So Sugar Mama over here,
what's up?
She took over, which was amazing, but it was also really tight living in Boston on one income when you're making, $50,000 a year basically. And so finances were tight. I basically was starting to find any excuse like not to leave the apartment. So I was kind of isolated. Like, I started working on other things. Like, I started working for a company that does communication and team building workshops, which I'm still doing. But at the time, like, I was just training. I wasn't making any money. I was basically just training to be a facilitator for them. And then I was doing the podcast, which was really fulfilling for me. But I was trying to do everything with that podcast, and it kind of like led me to burnout a little bit. And I was also involved in an education startup, and that one wasn't the best. Like, me and the other co-founder, we were just not the best mix for each other. We really had struggles like holding each other accountable. We were each going through our own like immigration issues and stuff like that. So it was just kind of like we'd make really good progress for 3 or 4 weeks, and then we'd do almost nothing for 3 or 4 weeks, and it'd go up and down and up and down.
Yeah, and that part was really, really conflicting too, because like I was there listening to you guys talking about, when you guys were first like deciding to do those things, and personality wise and as friends, like, you guys mesh so well. And I love her. I love her to death. And so it was just like, it was like almost like, man, like, dang it. Like, we're just like, we're not, like, we're great friends, but we're not the best business partners to really give this thing the best kick that it needs.
Yeah.
Because the heart was there. The heart and determination was there. It just wasn't 100. It just wasn't enough to like get it to that point. Yeah.
Yeah. So those things were happening. And so with all of that, neither of us were in the best place emotionally or mentally. And we had talked about moving and leaving, and really the only place that made sense was to come here, because anywhere else, like, we still would have had to incur like the moving costs and canceling the lease no matter which decision we made. But here, at least, like, this is a family home, like, there's no mortgage or anything like that. So we essentially talked to your dad, because he comes up here every 6 to 8 weeks, but only for like 3 or 4 days at a time. Like he's working, and so he's wanted to like fix up the house for a long time. Nobody's lived here full time for like 10 years or so. And so we were like, hey, Tommy, would you be cool like if we move into the place in Alabama, like if we take care of the renovations, whether it's like we do some of it ourselves or like find people that we can trust up here? And he was like all game for it. He was like, absolutely, that would be incredible. You guys would only be like a 5-hour drive from me, and we'd finally be able to do some work on the house. So like, yeah, absolutely, like I'm down for that. And
coincidentally, it wasn't an even farther drive from your parents' house either.
No,
like it honestly was about the same drive.
Yeah, from my parents' place to Boston.
To Boston
is the same, basically the same amount of time from my parents' place to here.
Yeah.
So that was cool. But yeah, so your dad being so open to letting us live here, like opened up a whole another possibility where we were like, oh, we could actually go and like not have to pay $2,000 a month in rent.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was a big point where we were just like, you know what, fuck it. Like, why are we doing things that we don't like to do? Like, it doesn't make any sense. So let's stop doing that. Let's get out of this lease and let's move, because like we're in a hole and it's just going to get deeper kind of thing.
Yeah. And I mean, we presented the idea to my dad. It must have been around either just before or just after our first year anniversary, because I still remember, specifically you having hesitation because where the house is located, we are in the middle of nowhere. Like, you know, like there's not even a red light to the town that we live in. Like the closest grocery store is the Piggly Wiggly, and that's still a 15-minute drive away. And like town, like where my part-time job is, like that's a half-hour drive away, and that's like a town. It's not, you know. So
we're also in the middle of the Bible Belt.
We are also very much in the middle of the Bible Belt, which is different from being in Boston for sure. And again, like, you know, like our neighbors are family, thankfully, you know, like that's kin to me. But we, again, like we're not walking down the hallway to other people like when we were living in Boston. Like we are not surrounded by people whatsoever. You know, like we interact with people when we go out, and that's basically it. Otherwise it is you and me in the house, in the woods with our cat.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I could write a children's book about the two people in the house in the woods with a cat.
Yeah, you probably could.
I'll probably do that.
Yeah. Okay. By the way, we're on our second cup of coffee, so if we go off on tangents, we're sorry, but not sorry.
They'll be entertaining, that's for sure.
Yeah, hopefully. But yeah, so we made the move in August, and it was expensive. It was like $11,000 or $12,000 to move.
Yeah, so to break the lease, it was 2 months rent, and rent was $2,100 a month. That was to break the lease, and
like we had to give them 60 days notice, so we had to stay there for 2 more months. And then we had to pay the 2-month penalty. Yeah,
so it's called, for anyone that's living in an apartment, it's called your termination fee. So always know what that is before you sign your lease. We knew exactly what that was. It's pretty standard in most apartment buildings. We just didn't expect that we would pay it only after 5 or 6 months of living there.
Yeah. So we basically had to pay like $8,800 just to cancel the lease itself. And then rent the U-Haul, pack everything up, drive all the way here, pay for all the gas, all that sort of stuff. So hotels, yep, all that. So yeah, it was around $12,000 to move. And
my great aunt passed away in the middle of that.
Yeah, on the way here.
Yeah.
On the way here. Yeah. So I love how we said we're giving an overview, but we're definitely going into like a lot of detail.
Well, there's a lot of things that happen, and we'll cut it eventually, I promise.
Yeah. So anyways, yeah, we moved here August 10th or 11th, 2022. And then the last 5 months of the year were really busy. Like your great aunt passed away, like as we were driving here. The funeral, I almost said wedding. The funeral was like the day after or 2 days after we actually got here. So we immediately went to that and had you know, that going on. And then the rest of the year, we were basically just sort of running around, kind of chasing, like we were investing in our businesses, our respective businesses, but it was like any opportunity that came up, if it would put $100 in our pocket, we were going to go do it, because it was $100 that would help us out, and it was experience that would just help us to basically build our business and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the big deciding factors of making a move like this, to one, live below our means, and two, just to be in a completely different space, like in a completely different environment, was to invest in ourselves. Like that was the big thing. We had that conversation multiple times before really deciding to move, was if we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and we're going to invest in the things that we want to do, not just go move and then go get the next job that pays us 40, 50 grand because it's going to be a starting salary, and then we got to move our way up the ladder. Like, that wasn't the goal. That wasn't what we wanted to do. And, you know, thankfully we had those conversations a lot, and we also had that conversation with my dad as well. And he was all game. He was like, hey, if you can make a living doing what you love, you might as well figure that out now. And we agreed with him. 110% we agreed with him. And that's exactly what we've been trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're on our way. We are on our way.
We are absolutely on our way. We're building a ton of momentum. And it's all really coming to fruition, which is really nice. And we are not stopping. We're going to keep pushing for sure. So question really quick. We've spent a decent amount of time going through this quote unquote overview. Do you want to, I'm going to pause here. Do you want to like go back to like the shooting and the mentally difficult things and like go into any detail with that? Or should we continue kind of like going through some of the detail of like the last 5 months and of the first 3 months of this year?
I can do some quick details of the shooting, because I really don't want to get that too deep into it.
Yeah.
And then we can kind of cover like what it's been like after the move.
Okay.
So when the shooting happened, there was a lot that was going on at my property, and there's still things I don't think I'm actually allowed to talk about in terms of like full detail of what happened. I don't know if the case is closed. I don't know if I'm legally bound to any, like, I know I've signed a lot of contracts, so I don't know what I'm allowed to talk about, not. I'm trying to make sure I'm not going to get sued at the end of this podcast.
The company's not going to find this podcast, so you'll be fine. Just share what you want to share.
But essentially what happened is that 11 rounds went off in one of the apartments that was on the third floor, and our main office was on the first floor by the elevators, and we actually didn't even hear the gunshots go off. But what it looked like, if you saw it when you walked into the apartment, it was very long and narrow. It was 2-bedroom, but it looked like someone stood at the door and just like faced the inside and just like went in a semicircle, like popping off the gun. Like honestly, it made it look like something. Yeah.
And we don't need to go into all the insurance details or whatever, but I want to focus more on like how the shooting, like what it did for you, like mentally, and how it just really set things off.
Yeah. So, I wouldn't even know how to describe it except that like something switched. Like it was almost like I was nervous and I was afraid a lot. Like I felt like I couldn't protect myself, felt like I couldn't control a lot of my environment. And I've always typically had control over my environment. And when I don't, it gives me a lot of anxiety. But the shooting had triggered something, and I had started having full-on anxiety and panic attacks. And I mean, like, I would wake up sweating, screaming. I would be in the shower, and like, I remember this one specifically. I was in the shower and I was just full on, like, couldn't breathe. And you came and got me, and you were just like I think water was still running, or we turned the water off. I don't even remember, but I remember you just like kind of holding me, just bringing my breath down. And those were consistent for probably about a month. And like weekly, like I was having them it started like I was having them almost every other day, and then they slowly subsided, and I had started therapy. Like I looked at you and I was like, I need a therapist. Like almost within a week, I was like, I need something. I need somebody, because I can't control anything, and I'm losing control of myself. I can't control my own emotions right now.
Yeah, and I mean, a couple months before the shooting happened, in February 2022, you and I were talking about getting a pet of some sort, whether a cat or a dog, and eventually we decided to get a cat. The shooting happened on February 11th, and the few days after that, you were kind of just in crisis management mode. And yeah, this was a whole thing, by the way. Like, I remember when you were actually at work and the shooting happened, like I was working from home, like, so I was on some video calls and working on stuff or whatever, and all of a sudden I have 3 missed calls from you, and I was like, oh fuck, like what's going on? Because like the rule that you and I have is that if we call twice in a row, like it's an emergency, basically. So I was like, oh shit, like I missed 3 calls, like this ain't good. So I called you, and you're in the janitor closet, like behind, like in the leasing office at your apartment complex. And you tell me what's going on. I was like, holy shit. So I like basically packed up everything and just like went down there. And when I just took public transit, and I took the bus, and I was going to your apartment, and everybody is there. SWAT team's there. A bunch of residents are outside. There are, I don't know, 5 or 6 like news outlets there. There's a freaking helicopter flying above the building. Like, it was a legit like thing that you see on TV when there's like a shooter at a property. Like, it was a big thing. Nobody knew that it was a kind of a scam thing or whatever. They just thought that there was somebody trying to kill somebody in the friggin' apartment building. So the couple days after the shooting, you're in crisis management mode because of your experience with like natural disasters and stuff. So you basically pushing your emotions down or to the side and just focusing on like, all right, how do I make things okay in the apartment for other people, like in the apartment complex? So I knew that obviously you were worked up about everything, but what really kind of was a big moment was 5 days later, on February 16th, we adopted Roma. And the first night we basically slept on the couch with her, because we didn't want her in our bedroom yet and to destroy everything. So we slept on the couch, and at 2 a.m., like, you woke up like from a dead sleep, just sat up like the Undertaker, and you were just sweating. You were almost shaking, like you were crying and just like couldn't breathe, like full panic attack. And you were basically like, I don't know, like we need to take her back. Like, I don't know if I can handle like her and whatever. And you were freaking out. And I mean, you had been talking about getting a cat for like 6 months or a year at that point. So like this was,
and I grew up with them too. Like, I've always had them in the house.
Yeah, that was a big reason why we talked about it so much. And so you're freaking out. Did we think about this like enough? Like, or are we just making an impulsive decision? Like, I don't know if I can handle having a cat in the house and all this sort of stuff. And you're freaking out. So we were like, whoa, like something is up. Like, something is really up. And over the next like 3 or 4 days, like, you had multiple panic attacks like throughout the day, and it wasn't anything in particular happened. Like, they were random throughout the day, and they were happening consistently. And eventually you're like, Adam, I want to go see a therapist.
Yeah. I mean, it was something else to like, and there's no words to describe it, but I mean, like, to quite literally have no control over yourself or over your emotional state. Like, I could not grasp anything. I couldn't grasp how to manage my own emotions. And for most part, like, unless you're sitting there yelling at me to my face, I mean, like, I can pretty much hold my own in terms of like my emotional state. Yeah. And this one, I couldn't. They would hit. I was doing the dishes, and I was putting dishes in the dishwasher, and I was in the kitchen, and just, I don't know, I was probably like on the 7th dish putting it in the dishwasher, and I broke down in the kitchen. I remember that one.
Yeah. Or like, I mean, we had Roma for like you know, 3 days, 4 days, even like a week. And you were terrified that I would pick her over you.
Oh,
Like if
yeah, I remember that.
that you were so scared that if you said that you wanted to take her back, that I would be like, all right, well, you have to leave because I'm keeping the cat.
Mm-hmm.
Which is pretty ironic because over the last year, like I've struggled a lot with the relationship between me and my cat. It sounds funny, I know, but like I had a big struggle over the last year, really accepting and truly loving our cat. And so, yeah, at that time, like you're freaking out about that. And you know, in my head, it was the easiest decision ever. Like I was like, Shelby, if you really like truly feel this way, like over the next like little period of time, like it would be difficult. It would be really difficult to bring her back. But I pick you over the cat no matter what. Like it's easy decision, but obviously with everything that you were going through, like that was really difficult for you to see. And you were super, super worried that I was just going to keep Roma and basically abandon you.
Yeah, I was, one of the big things that came up once I had started therapy was this awareness around having abandonment issues, really. And there's really no other way to say it because, you know, sometimes there's like that stigma around saying the word, oh, it's an issue or, whatever. But it is, I have to call it what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I still struggle, but not nearly where I was at. I have a lot more coping skills and tools in my toolbox to help me work through those moments. But the abandonment stuff all stemmed from my mom when she left, when I was really, really little. And she didn't just leave me once. She had left me a couple times in different ways. And I had an older sister that had passed away. And the last time I saw her before she passed away, she had said, oh, I'll be back. And then she didn't come back. She passed away. So there was a lot of moments in my life where things had happened and I had this fear, and I would say I'm still dealing with this fear of the most important people and things in my life deciding and choosing to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And that just hurt me. And then it was also a revelation to understanding like how I had been in other relationships prior to ours.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot to unpack, and it will always be a lot to unpack. So
yeah.
And that's okay. It's my story, it's my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to accept it. And I do accept it. It's just also, it's a reason, you know, it's not an excuse for anything, but it is a reason why. Mm-hmm. And that's something I can deal with.
Yeah. And so, and therapy really helped to uncover that and to help you, put some vocabulary around it and to also give you some tools that you can put in your toolbox to help with things like that. Because I think a big part of it also was that, I mean, you and I have always had like one of our core values, something from day one was open, honest communication. Like if that's not there, then this ain't working.
Open, honest, transparent
communication. Yeah. And it was, that was like basically the first thing that we said to each other.
Oh yeah. I was very clear and you were too. And I was like, either we're transparent or it's not going to work. Either we are 100% transparent or it's not going to work. Excluding birthday, Christmas gifts or surprises, little things like that. Everything else has got to be open and transparent. Mm-hmm. I can't deal with secrets. I can't deal with hidden agendas, and I won't and I don't entertain them. Yeah. I don't. And it's funny because once we had started that, all the way, even now, anybody that's in my circle, I don't deal with it. Mm-hmm. I don't deal with the gossip or behind back stuff. It's either you are who you are and you're authentic and you're true and you're kind and caring, or I don't need you in my circle. Yeah.
And I think what was really important, like while you're going through that, you know, emotional and mental state, after, like, with everything following the shooting, was the open, honest, transparent conversations, because like it's not you are like the most, basically you're like, you're putting all your vulnerabilities out there, saying like, Adam, I'm scared that you are going to choose the cat over me, and then you're just going to abandon me. And saying that out loud, like, just really communicated like the magnitude of what was happening. And I was like, okay, like, that is an absurd thought, because like there's no way that I would do that. But like with everything that's happening, like it's important that you communicated that, because of how like you believed that, like that's what you were thinking at the time. And it was very much like, okay, like let's address this, let's figure it out. And so therapy not only like helped you to work through it, but it also like allowed me and you to have more productive conversations with each other around like where those feelings came from, why they were coming up, and how we could potentially move forward together. And it made me aware. I think one important thing about therapy that might not be discussed as often is that you are able to communicate to me what your triggers are.
Yeah.
And it helps me to be a better person towards you, and a better partner, and a better best friend, because there's just a deeper level of understanding where it's like, oh, okay, like I never thought that, you know, this sentence would set you off, but now knowing like the history or where this came from, I can see a little bit more of like how that could do that, and I'll be more aware of it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too. Like, there's no perfect solution. Like, you know, especially we're humans, and we react instantaneously most times when things happen. So, you know, a big thing for me that we work on together is accepting of reality. And because there's only really one way to say that. And basically it can be as simple as I say, hey, you're wearing green and beige pants. Oh, I'm wearing green and beige pants too. And if you would look at me and you would go, oh, your shirt's not green, it's blue. And most people would say, oh, they're in the same color wheel, they're close, whatever. But for me, you are denying what I was thinking to be true. And that was a huge, huge thing for me. It was very small. It was very minute. But it was this like, I have to be able to tell you, hey, when you say things like this is what it does and how it makes me feel. And it has been now almost a full year of therapy, and I am finally getting to a place where I can clearly communicate those things in a way where you're able to understand. Because sometimes I tell you things and you're like, I hear you, but I don't actually understand like what this means or what this is doing. And that was one of them. That was one of those things that
we've literally had that little like discussion. Yeah. Like that specific scenario has played itself out.
Yeah, I mean, that was a legit moment. Yeah. In the bedroom, getting ready to leave for a day, you know, and it has taken time to get to that place of how do I use the correct words to describe and explain to you when you say that's not what that person said, or, you know, you're not wearing green, you're wearing blue, and how that translates to me and how that makes me feel. Sometimes those things can come off just nuts, and sometimes they don't make sense. But if I don't find those ways to communicate that with you, then it just bottles up. Yeah,
of course.
And then I get angry and I explode, and then I'm just like a raging whatever for a while. Yeah.
And I think, you know, in the moment, I'm like, you know, if you have like an emotional reaction to it, like in the moment, I'm like, look, your clothes just look like different colors than what you described. Like, I don't see what the big deal is. But when you described it to me, you know, recently, you're basically like, Adam, I've been told my whole life that like what I have said is not true. That like the reality that I see is not actually reality. Like people have told me, oh no, you're wrong about this, or oh, you're wrong about that, or oh, you shouldn't feel that, or whatever it is, like multiple times. So it's like sort of ingrained into me. And that's why these things bother me so much. Right. And you communicating it like that to me, like it's just different, right? It just makes me look at the scenario a little bit different and be like, yeah, I guess you know what I mean. Like you're right. Like your perception is not my perception, and so I can't tell you that like you should see things a certain way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and a big example that I think everyone can relate to is, and I'll ask the question, how many times have you been in a conversation with your parents and you go, but mom, but dad, you said this. You said we're going on Saturday. And you have that conversation on Monday. So now it's Thursday and you said, and they're talking about doing something else. And then you go, oh, but mom, but dad, you said we were going there on Saturday, not doing this. And then they go, I've never said that. I never said that. Or I didn't say that. I said this. And you're sitting there looking at them going, I know what you said. And you do or don't have that argument with them depending on the relationship with your parents. But you're sitting there going, and you're having to like reevaluate. Am I nuts? Am I crazy? Did I hear it? Did I not hear it? Am I making it up? Okay, well, that's a very small scale. But just put down the amount of years, the amount of times, the amount of people, managers, bosses, colleagues, friends, siblings that you have those conversations with and you have those comments with. It builds.
Yeah. And I mean, like, another thing is that a thing that like the main thing, I guess, that you were concerned about is like you were frustrated when, you know, if you say like, oh, we're wearing matching outfits, and I go, what? You're wearing different colors than me. People are basically saying that like what you're not seeing is actually real, and it kind of fucks with your head a little bit, and you're like, what? It almost like the trust in yourself is like diminishing a little bit when that happens over and over and over again. And so, you know, again, when you kind of describe it that way, it's like, okay, you know, that makes a lot more sense than just sort of like, it's deeper than just like, oh, we're wearing matching outfits or we're not type of thing. You know what I mean? Like every time that happens, it's just, and again, it's kind of like for me, I'm like, okay, I'll just be more aware of that. I'm like, I don't have any ill intentions. I'm not trying to like set you off on some, you know, emotional reaction by saying that our outfits aren't matching, but it's good to know like where the sort of backstory comes from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Got off on a little tangent there, but you know, second cup of coffee, it's all good. So anyways, yeah, therapy really helped you to like uncover a lot of things and opened up a lot of other conversations for us. And a lot of like, because of that, we had a lot of conversations about like, do we still really want to be here? Right? Because like in your job, you had been in your job for almost a year, and you were doing very well in your position, and there were other people in the company that were realizing that you definitely had the potential to move up, whether it was to assistant property manager at that property or somewhere else. And you're essentially just, the environment that you were working in was kind of manipulative, and it was also just a toxic work environment. You weren't getting opportunities, or like your manager was almost seemed like intentionally like gaslighting you to like be reactive, and to just kind of like I don't know, put you down in a way. And it wasn't healthy. It really wasn't healthy. And you were working a lot of hours, and, you know, you'd come home, you know, you'd have to transit 30 to 45 minutes every day for work, sometimes an hour. So your 8-hour workday turned into 10 or whatever. And living in an apartment building, like at work, you were in an apartment building and you were dealing with 350 to 400 residents that you were
600.
Okay, 300 units?
Yeah.
300 units, 600 residents. And so you're dealing with people all the time and troubleshooting for them and working in this toxic environment. And all the residents, a lot of the residents that you were close with were like, Shelby, why the fuck are you still here?
Oh, all the time.
They're like, you're way better than this place. Like, why do you let them treat you like this? And
at the same time, they were also like, please don't leave. We love you. They were like, you deserve better, but please don't leave.
Yeah, exactly. So all of those, so yeah, you were dealing with like 600 residents at work and troubleshooting and basically in this big customer service role for all of them, plus doing, you know, all of the work behind the scenes. And there weren't enough people employed to do all the jobs. Like, it was, you were doing multiple jobs, and it was just, you were overworked.
There was one weekend in particular, one Saturday, where I literally had a raccoon in the parking garage. I had a leak from the 7th floor to the main floor, and I believe I also had an event that afternoon, and I was the only one in that office that day, and the maintenance guy that was on call was there with me, helping me. I had to cancel tours. I had to do all kinds of stuff. And at some point, I'm just sitting down in the stairwell of the parking garage with the raccoon. And I was like, raccoon dude, can you just, I don't have the mental capacity or energy. You're rabid. I don't know. I'm trying to protect people. Oh, I can't get in touch with animal control. I was like, just leave. And I can just remember sitting there going, what am I dealing with? And on that exact same day, another leak happened in another building on my property.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, no support. I don't want to say no support, very little, very, very little support. And it was not good.
Yeah. And it was kind of like, you know, it was literally same shit, different day. Like over and over and over again. And it didn't matter how many, you know, conversations were had. I mean, actually at times you couldn't even have conversation with your manager for various reasons. And so that was really frustrating because, I mean, you're trying to make the place better, but it just seemed like you were just on a fucking hamster wheel, basically. So given all of that and everything that happened with the shooting and all the therapy and stuff like that, we just really started having conversations about why is it that we are still here? And what other options do we have? Like we talked about moving to Denver, Colorado. Like we talked about potentially moving to Virginia, although we didn't have a city. But we just really liked Virginia when we did our road trip through there in 2021. And then we were talking about this place. We were talking about moving here. And I was very skeptical because I was like, yeah, let's go live in like one of the most religious places ever in the middle of fucking nowhere. And, you know, spoiler alert, fast forward 8 months, I'm like, this is such a blessing. Like, this is amazing. I love this place. But all of those conversations, you know, all of those things led to us really talking about what we were going to do. And we had a lot of conversations about this place because of the reservations that I just sort of put out there. And ultimately, you know, thankfully your dad was open to us moving here. And we were just like, listen, like this is the time, if not when, or if not now, when.
Yep.
Right? Like that was basically the way that we were looking at it. We're like, you know, you're not happy in your job. I'm not totally happy in the things that I'm doing. I feel like I'm just kind of like, I'm doing too many things and I don't know where to put my energy, and I'm socially isolated. Like I'm not in a good space mentally. So like, what do we do? And we essentially said, you know what, Shelby, you quit your job. I'll quit my fucking job. Like at the startup, because it's just not serving me the way that I thought it would. And let's move to Alabama and let's do the things that we actually want to do. Let's get our expenses as low as we can and do the things that we really want to do.
And now we are here.
Yeah, and now we're here. Yeah, and it's been an eventful and amazing like 7 to 8 months already. And I'm so excited for what is going to come for sure. And essentially we're like, all right, we're quitting our jobs. You've always wanted to start a photography business. So you started a photography business.
I did.
I wanted to continue with my podcast, which, ta-da, we're still doing.
Dun, dun, dun. Where's Elon's buttons? Like the sound effect buttons. This is what I need right now.
I'll install those later on.
Thank you.
There are 4 sound effects buttons on here that we can use.
I'll record them.
So I was like, I want to do the podcast, and I also want to continue doing the communication and team building workshops that I'm doing with Gregor, because he's fucking awesome. And I see a future with that company because I really, really enjoy what I'm doing. So that's basically what we've been investing in over the last 7 to 8 months. And it's been awesome. But there have been a lot of challenges along the way. And finances has been a challenge for us, like basically since we started dating, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean we started dating when we were finishing our grad program, and then COVID hit, and then we were together for a year. It took me a while before I found a job during COVID. Finally found a job, and it was steady, but it wasn't a lot of money coming in.
Yeah, and we were living on one fucking income.
Yep.
Like I couldn't work. We didn't anticipate how long I wouldn't be able to work for. We paid for an engagement ring, a wedding, and all the money that it cost for me to get my green card.
Yep.
And we're living in Boston.
Yep.
On one income. So like, yeah, finances have always been a thing. And finances were tight when we were in Boston. And literally we were looking at all of our finances and we were saying, okay, like if we cancel this lease and we buy the U-Haul and all of this stuff, we're anticipating like $11,000, and a lot of, like half of it, at least half of it's going to have to go on a credit card.
Mm-hmm.
But we were like, you know what? Like, again, if not now, when? And there's never going to be a perfect time to do it. And like, neither of us are fucking happy, fulfilled, and our mental and emotional state is on the line. So like, we have to.
And I would say even to an extent, our relationship was eventually going to take a toll. We've always been a very strong together, but you can only live in those environments for so long before it'll start affecting each other. And I would have lived in a box before I would have let anything like that start to happen.
Oh, 100%. And so we were just like, fuck it. We'll put it on the credit card. And you know, thankfully we have amazing parents and they helped us out a little bit with some of the finances, but it was still, you know, the majority of it was on us, which we obviously expected. And a lot of it had to go on a credit card. And I remember even like 2 months after we moved here, like you were freaking out about $11,000 in credit card debt. And I just remember, you know, in that moment looking at you and going, Shelby, I'll do that all over again. Like the $11,000, we'll figure it out. We'll pay that off. Like that is 100% worth like your mental health and my mental health. Like it is absolutely worth it. Like I pay that $10,000, $11,000 again in a heartbeat in order to get you out of that environment. So.
And I would have done the same in return too.
Yeah, 100%. And that's an important thing. And I know that like, you know, not everybody has the exact same situation as us. But we had to take that big risk to basically get to where we are. Like, it's not like we were just like, oh yeah, cool, let's just move. And all of a sudden things are better. Like we put $11,000 worth of stuff on our credit cards basically. And we had no fucking jobs lined up here.
We had nothing. We didn't know when we got here. We didn't know where we would work. We didn't know how we were going to get money coming in. And we were like, we don't know what to do. We didn't even have a car. We had, thankfully, my dad still had my grandmother's old vehicle as a backup vehicle. And he's letting us use that. Yeah. And there was just all these other things, and we were just like, and you know what came up a lot? Every time we would talk to people, we would always either hear or talk with people that were pursuing their dreams after they did a lot of grunt work and did things that they didn't want to do. And I can remember us having a conversation of when we got here, or maybe it was on the way here, we just had this conversation of, why should we come here and go get 9-to-5 jobs and dedicate time to that when we're gonna have to grind, we're gonna have to do a lot of work, we're gonna have to do a lot of time management, and we're gonna have to cut a lot of things out and live below our means as much as we can and just go for what we want now, rather than doing something else and then having to start all over again. Yeah,
because essentially with the $11,000 in credit card debt, like there's obviously urgency to make money. Like there's it's
a lot of urgency. You're like, man, I got a credit card payment to make, and if I don't make it, then I have to pay more. You're
like, yeah, we're like, our credit card, you know, just your interest only is like $300-$400, like just on that, you know, $10,000 or $11,000. So there was a big talk about that, and we had multiple conversations about like whether one or both of us were going to get part-time or full-time jobs. And actually it was more a conversation of whether you would do it,
because I had the opportunity to go back into the real estate world and with a different company, but I would have to drive a lot to get there.
There was that, but there was also like with the communication workshops that I was doing, like they were finally starting to like pick up again, like because after COVID, you know, the company took quite a hit. But I mean, at the time, I wasn't in a role where I was like trying to secure business. I was basically just like, hey, you got, you know, to my boss, like, hey, Gregor, if you've got workshops that you want me to do, just send them my way. I'll go do any and all of them because we're in this financial spot. But things were starting to pick up and I was starting to generate some income from that. And then I mean, you know how passionate I am about Comfort via Discomfort and the podcast and everything. And you saw like how much time I wanted to put into that. So you're like, well, Adam, even if you do one workshop a month, you're bringing in $1,000, right? Like, I don't want to take time away from that or from the podcast, because like those are two things that you're super passionate about, and something that you've always supported me in is kind of pursuing things that are fulfilling, which I can't thank you enough for. And so for me, it was like, I can't do like another thing that's going to take up like so much of my time. And so when we got here after about a month, man, looking back at it, it's funny, but it's like, that's what we had to do. We both got jobs at a golf course nearby, and like we're sitting there in the interview, both of us like double master's degrees, like applying for like a minimum wage job in Alabama, and like the wage is like $7.25 like an hour, and you were working in the pro shop making 10 an hour. Big spender. And I was
insert my music right here.
Yeah. And I was working for $7.25 an hour and making tips. But like the reason why we got those jobs was because like we basically walked in there, we were like, we know our calendar for the rest of the year, from September through December. Like, we know our calendar and know what days we want off. And essentially we were like, what you said earlier, we don't want to just go do another 9-to-5 job. Like, that's not the fucking point. Like, yes, it would help us pay off credit card right now, but we are looking for more than that. We're looking for fulfillment and finances, basically. So like, you know, we got to find that balance. And so the decision that we made was, we're going to work. Each of us is going to work. And we only had one vehicle. So we really had to be like specific.
We had to be as close to the same time schedule as much as possible.
Yeah.
And it had to be within a certain radius of each other, because we, again, like, we live 30 minutes away from town, and we have to commute together. So we're not saving anything if if we have different days working in town. We're spending more gas money. Like, it had to be, we're working the same days, close to the same time frames, and we're going and coming back on the same days to like minimize that gas cost, the car cost, all of that.
So it was kind of yeah, I mean, it wasn't ideal, because I mean $7.25 an hour, but it was like, we can work there 3 days a week, like the same shifts. And we went in there basically like, all right, here's what we want. We want to work only mornings, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And we want to we have to work like the same shifts basically, right? Sunday, Monday, Tuesday in the morning. And here are all the days that we need off from now until the end of the year because of other opportunities that we need to pursue. And they were like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So it was like very humbling, because we're like 2 master's degrees applying for a minimum wage job in Alabama. And they were like, you know, even in the interview, you know, they're asking me some like very, very basic questions. I'm just like, dude, like, I remember the manager going like, where do you see yourself in 1 year? My brain went, not fucking here. But I was like, ideally, like, I'm working on growing 2 other businesses. So ideally, like, I would be doing those and not still working here. And he accepted that answer. And he was like, okay, well, thank you for the transparency. But it's just, yeah. So anyways, we were like, yeah, we want to make sure that we're pursuing fulfillment and finances. And essentially, let's do this job for 3 days a week so that we can pursue the other stuff 4 days out of the week, essentially. And I remember when we first moved here, I actually had a job to work remotely for a friend's construction company doing business development work, like a friend's construction company in Boston doing business development work. And it was definitely a lot more money than $7.50 or $7.25 an hour. So that would have been great. But I remember the conversation, and you were like, Adam, like, why don't you want to do that? And it was a vulnerable moment for me as well. But I basically was like, I was finding every excuse to stay in the apartment in Boston. Like, I need something to pull me out of it. Like, I've seen friends and family like kind of go through this, and I know that I'm not in the best spot right now. So like, even though that job pays more and would help us financially, like, it's not going to help me mentally. And like, I need a job that forces me to socialize with other people and to be outside.
I was about to say something that we haven't mentioned in this episode yet is that while I was going through so much mental stuff when we were in Boston because of my work environment and the active shooter and just where we were living, how we were living, all of that stuff. And you were, as a partner, you were very, very, very supportive and very understanding. And you also gave me a lot of grace when I wasn't 100% and present and just as a partner, because it was very challenging sometimes. And once we had about a month before we moved, and within that month I had finally kind of gotten to this like really good place, like comfortability wise. And I can remember us having a conversation, and I remember you specifically saying like, I haven't been in a good headspace because I'm finding every reason not to leave the apartment. And there was a moment there where I was like, I'm not being a good spouse. And like, I had to like accept the fact that I was going through stuff and you were going through stuff too. But we had to have this balance of, okay, whose stuff is more detrimental at this point? Because while we still had our coffee dates and you were able to still communicate with me that you were going through things, I remember not being as fully aware of them, and also feeling really bad. Like I'm feeling really, really bad and guilty for myself for not being more present with you. But I also had to come to this understanding and give myself a lot of grace in realizing that I couldn't. I had no capacity when all of that stuff was happening there to give you that time and energy, and to also allow you some more space to figure out what we could do to help. And again, living in a big city, you couldn't, if you left the apartment, unless you're going for a walk, you're spending money, whether it's to ride the bus or to go grab a coffee. You spend money when you live in a big city, no matter what. And just, I can remember, and when we finally moved here, and I could just see it on your face, like it was like almost immediately I could see this like lift, like this mental lift. And you had, and like, even though with the job you're interacting with a lot of like high schoolers and like young college graduates and stuff like that, like you still just having a little bit of that social interaction and everything, like I immediately just saw the difference. And I've just never been so thankful of like that transition. But I also think it's like, it's good to be said that like we realize that like there's a you'll hear it now being talked about, that marriage isn't 50-50. It's not even like 100-100. It's sometimes my 100% is only 40%. But if I can give you my 40%, I'll give you my 40%. And then there's some other times where I can't. And then there's always just like that balance and shift with time and energy to each other. And you have to find what works for yourselves by having as many open conversations as you can, because that was another thing too.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that was sort of saving me, I guess, while living in Boston was the fact that throughout the green card process, when I basically couldn't do fucking anything, you were super supportive and encouraging me to invest in things that would bring me fulfillment, things that I was passionate about, like the podcast and like the communication workshops with Gregor and his company. But even after after I got the green card in March of 2022, like there wasn't all of a sudden this switch where it's like, all right, Adam, like you got to get a full-time job. Like you got to make, $4,000 a month or whatever, because we're really tight financially. You were like, Adam, we have enough to get by, and I don't want to take you away from the things that are bringing you fulfillment, because like, even though they're not the money, biggest money making things right now, like I see how you light up when you do these things. I see that you're working really hard and that you're just enjoying what you're doing. And I know that you'll make something from these opportunities eventually. I don't know if it'll be 3 months. I don't know if it'll be 12 months or a year and a half, but you are going to, make something from these opportunities. So, we may get to a point where finances are so tight that you know, have to change things up, but it's not right now.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's every couple and every person's going to have their limit on that. And fortunately, for our situation, I know how to live in crisis mode. You know, like I get it. Like I get how to live in that space. And, and if things are tight, things are still okay.
Yeah.
And I can still survive in those moments. And I know when we've hit rock bottom. And surprisingly enough, $15,000 of credit card debt wasn't rock bottom for me.
Yeah.
Plus student loans and stuff that we still have to pay off. And that still wasn't rock bottom for me. And I don't know, like sometimes you just have those gut feelings of when you know, no, we're not there.
Yeah.
We're not there yet where we have to make that shift.
Yeah. So, and what I really appreciated just about you and about both of us was like, we had the humility to be like, listen, we're got 2 master's degrees. Give me this minimum wage job, please. Because it's what we had to do, like with what we were trying to do with fulfillment and finances, and really pursuing the photography that for you and the communication and podcasting for me. It was, this is what we need to do. Like we need something that's super flexible and something that is not going to be taking up all of our time. So that was the choice that we were making, was this is not a job. Like we don't see this job as like, you know, would we pick this job? Ideally, no. Like, do we think that this is above us? No. Like, this is something that we got to do in order to try and make things work right now. Like, it was a way of like, all right, this is a way to bring in $400, $500 a week, you know, so that we can cover our base expenses, so that we're not digging ourselves in a hole that is deeper and deeper and deeper. Like, let's cover our base expenses, and then invest all the other time into stuff. So like the last 5 months of 2022 was basically working at the golf course, and then running around for me doing communication workshops. Like I went to Houston, I went to the Woodlands in Texas. We went up to Windsor, Ontario, as well, to do a workshop there. And you did a couple other photo shoots. So we were just basically, let's go do all of this stuff. And it wasn't until we were home, like we were at my parents' place in Windsor, Ontario during Christmas, where I was like, let me actually look at how busy we were like throughout the last 5 months. And from the time that we moved here till the end of the year, till December 31st, there were about 160 days in that time period total. And the number of days that you and I were here together without anybody visiting was only 40 days. So like 75% of the time we are either traveling or had people here.
Yep.
And I mean, it was, that's the thing. Like it was all amazing stuff. It was all things that like we needed to do and wanted to do, and people who we wanted to have here. But it was just a lot.
I can remember after Christmas, when we got back from visiting your family, we got back from Christmas and we both just said, we're done. Like we're, in terms of just traveling for a while and going places. Yeah. We were like, we are here. We are here. We are present, and we are staying here and going to our job, and we are coming back, and we are going to figure out what our routine actually looks like. Because that was the other thing too. Like, people will go back and forth on routines and whether or not they're good or not. You do you guys. You figure that out for your own. I'm going to tell you right now, routine helps me. I don't care if it's just a bedtime routine, day routine, whatever. And I needed some set of routine. And for the first 6 months, we didn't have it. And it took us a month to really figure that out. And it's actually taken us, I would even say, these last 3 months to even figure out how our spending is. And what our budget actually looks like for expenses, for groceries, for bills. And it hasn't been until probably the last month where we've realized like what our top dollar is of what we have to pay. And now we're finally at a place where, okay, this is how much money we're bringing in. And now we can actually deviate and save and pay off cards and all that stuff, which just goes to show you sometimes you just got to let time take its course and just be patient.
Yeah.
You got to just work and be patient and trust the process that you're on. And if your process feels wrong, it probably is. Like if something's just not working right, you can't say it after one day. If you do it for a month, maybe even longer, and you're just like, man, something's just not right about this. Mm-hmm. That's when you've got to look at it and go, let's make an adjustment.
Yeah. I totally agree. And in the last 5 months of 2022, things were a bit crazy, and because we were running around so much and having people visit and that kind of stuff, there were two things that really stressed me out. One was like we moved here, and for me, like anytime that we go on a trip, like as soon as I get home, I'm like unpacking within the first 10 or 15 minutes, put it away, get it in the laundry, like boom, I'm done type of thing. It's done, out of the way.
Guys, I don't do that. I've maybe done it once.
Right. But I mean, also with this place, I mean, this is the home where your grandmother lived, and your grandmother is basically your mother. Mm-hmm. And you spent, this is the only place out of everywhere that you feel like is your actual home because of the amount of time that you spent with your grandmother and because of how close you and your grandmother were. And so nobody, and your grandmother passed in 2017, and you guys really haven't had the time or dedicated the time to go through all of her belongings, right? Because obviously you were finishing your undergrad and then went to do your master's program, and that's where we met. And your dad has been working and, only gets so much time off and stuff like that. So there hasn't been dedicated time here to go through stuff. So coming here, I knew that. I was very, very well aware of that, of course. But it was very frustrating at times when there were just boxes piled in the living room. There, we still have some fucking boxes, but I'm a lot more content with them now than I was before, because like I wasn't under the impression that things were going to fucking happen in 2 weeks, but I was under the impression that like we were going to like dedicate some time to like going through some stuff. And it's just, I definitely underestimated or didn't quite understand like how emotional that was and still is for you in terms of going through that stuff and making decisions of whether to keep it, donate it, get rid of it, keep it in a storage shed, like whatever it is. And so,
well, and everyone has their own, because that's a part of the grieving process, and everyone has their own grieving process. Mm-hmm. And for me, part of my grieving process is when I'm letting things go, and because it feels wrong. Like my grandmother's clothes have been in this closet since I was born. They've been in the same place. They've had the same smell. They've had the same location. They've been on the same wired hanger for years. I'm 27. She passed away when I was 22. So for 20-something years, they have been in that place. Mm-hmm. And I'm now having to remove those things and put them in a bag, put them in a box. Like, it just feels wrong. Mm-hmm. Like, it does. Like, it feels like I'm taking something away from its place, and it's going in a place that it shouldn't be, because it's always lived here. Mm-hmm. And that's just been hard for me. The poor Christmas tree, man.
Yeah, that one was tough.
That one was hard.
That was. And yeah, so I mean, like, and the thing was, like, during the last 5 months of 2022, I didn't really exactly realize how little time we were here. And so every time that we came back home, or were home together, I'd see the boxes and would just be irritated, because for me, I'm like, I don't need things to be perfect by any means, but I need some sort of organization, some sort of, like, I need declutter. I don't know if that's declutterization. I don't know if that's a word, but declutterization. Like, I need some sort of, like, organization, or if my space is cluttered, my mind is cluttered. I'll put that on a fucking bumper sticker.
Oh my God, even the bumper stickers.
But no, it was true. And I mean, at Christmas 2020, to when we were at my parents' place, and I actually looked back at how many days we were legitimately together, it was only 40 out of 160. And there was only one time where we were here for more than 10 days at a time. And it was in November. We were home for 3 weeks together without anybody visiting. That was the most amount of time that we were home consecutively together with no visitors in the last 5 months of 2022. And so looking back at that, I was like, oh, well, no wonder why we didn't make any fucking progress unpacking. Like, we were home for 4 days at a time, and then I had to leave. Or then you were, doing some, a photo shoot, or you were, working at the golf course or whatever. So there were a number of things that were just, kind of in the way. And again, we were doing the things that we wanted to do in terms of pursuing different opportunities. And one thing that was, that came from that was like we were able to pay about $7,500 towards our credit card debt, and at that time it had piled up to $15,000. So we were able to pay half of our credit card debt off by, I think, December, which was nice, because it was a big relief for us. I mean, our bank accounts went down a lot. Oh, I didn't think you'd be able to hear that. That's the deer feeder off in the distance. I don't know if you can hear that on the podcast, but we can hear it.
Oh my God.
Anyways, that just means it's 12 o'clock. So
it's our timer.
Yeah.
Tells you where we are. Our timer is our deer feeder down in the woods.
Oh, stop it. That's not our regular timer. Jesus, you're going to make these people think like we're fucking crazy, which maybe we are a little bit. But anyways, we were able to pay off like $7,500 of our credit card because of all of the running around that we were doing, which was a big relief. Our bank accounts went very low, but it was something that we needed to do because it was like we're just spending so much money in interest every month on credit cards that like it's just not worth it to not put a large sum towards it when we can. So we decided to do that. And at that time, I mean, you mentioned student loans earlier. So this is definitely, I mean, for anybody listening, Shelby knew about my student loans before we started dating. So it's not like I just dropped this ball on her all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's okay. It's part of the big questions to ask before you get married.
It is, 100%.
It's the kids question, the finances question, the debt question, and
values.
Probably values.
Yeah, just really getting clear on values and just, how you want to operate.
Those are the big questions. Like, those are the big overarching questions. There's all the subset, but those are the big ones.
Yeah.
And I knew about the debt before.
So
mine are paid off.
Coming into, who paid those off? Yeah.
Grandma.
Thanks, Grandma.
But that is because I went through college and I didn't get pregnant. That was that deal.
Well, what the fuck? I didn't get pregnant in college either.
Shut up.
So anyways,
there's that short clip.
Yeah. We're going into 2023. We've got $15,000 of credit card debt here. And I've got $75,000 Canadian student loan, so it's about $60K US. And that is basically was going to, at the time it was only interest. It was interest only payments. And I had some savings in my Canadian account to be, paying that off basically. But with, and then interest rates went fucking through the roof. So my payments went from like $225 a month to like $450. And so my Canadian account is now getting super low. And our bank accounts here are getting super low, and we have $15,000 of credit card debt. So it was like, holy fuck, like we got a lot going on. But we paid $7,500 off on our credit card. So we took that down to half. And then we're basically like, all right, we need to fucking put a plan together to like, get more paid off. What? Why are you laughing?
I'm just laughing because I know so many people are going to be listening to this specific moment and they're going to think back to when I said we weren't at rock bottom, and I'm like, we weren't, guys.
That's the thing. Like, and that's the amazing part about this was because we were doing, again, to paint the picture clearly, like we're working at a golf course making minimum wage. Like at first, like it was really important for me to be there because of the socialization. But especially in the winter here, I mean, it's not fully winter, it's colder, right? But obviously it's the slow season in terms of golf. $7.25 an hour, I'm working 6 hours. So I'm making $40 fucking in wages. And then whatever tips we make, we split between 3 to 5 people. So I'm only making like $20 in tips. So I'm making $60 a day for like 6 hours worth of work. Whereas with a communication workshop, I do a full day communication workshop. It's like 7 hours and I get paid $1,000 US to do that. Right. The issue is just like, I don't control how many workshops I have. Like when they come in and I do them. So at first it was a very important socialization piece for me to be at the golf course. But eventually I got to the point where I was like, I don't know how much fucking longer I can do this, babe. Like I'm making $50, $60 a shift. And like, I could spend this time trying to get business for my communication workshops. Like I could take the initiative and try to get more clients basically. Or I could just be putting more time into the podcast, growing it, monetizing it, whatever. Cause like I am confident that I can get my podcast to a place that it makes more than $50. So like, I'm going to try to do that. But yeah, that's where we were at. And we had all this sort of debt piling up sort of thing. And then, but we were very focused on the path that we needed to go, because we knew that with my communication stuff, the podcast and your photography, it was the right sort of path to go. Yeah. So that's kind of where we came into 2023 on. And then we really started to do some pretty important things, like literally from like January 1st onward. One of them is that we joined a weekly like business mentoring, business accountability group. So we do that every Wednesday, and we're basically going to be doing that for the entire year this year.
For anyone wondering, it's called Thank University. Yeah. It's great.
Mr. Blake Fly, shout out to Mr. Blake Flyshacker.
Mr. Balake.
Balake. Yeah, Blake's awesome. He's been a friend of mine for a while, but yeah, so this workshop that we're doing is almost $100, this accountability mentoring thing is almost $100 a month to be in. But again, it's just kind of like, where we were in this space of like, where we have all this debt, but we want to invest in our businesses and this future that we see of being able to work from anywhere, anytime type of thing. Where's the balance? Do we spend the money on like investing in this stuff, or do we not, because like our finances are really tight? And so some things we said no to. A number of things we've said no to.
It still makes me sad to think I had to say no to that photo shoot, but it's okay.
Yeah, but
you have to.
But yeah,
you have to know your balance. The
boundaries too. Like yes. That's the thing. The boundaries, right? And that was the thing. And again, like I'm very grateful that we're in a spot where even 2 days ago or yesterday, there's an opportunity for you to go into like another sort of workshop, and you're like, hey, babe, this thing's like $200, and like I know we're in a better financial spot, but I just wanted to chat with you about it. Like, yeah. And even back in December when we're super tight on everything, we still have that conversation. Like we're not afraid to say, hey, like here's how much it is, and here's why I think it would be beneficial. Can we make this work? Yeah, type of thing.
Yeah, and I mean to clarify, we have the financial strategy where our bank accounts are still separate. They are separate, but our names are on each other's bank accounts. Mm-hmm. And we have it set up to where his income, as of now, pays for mostly like debt and any like random travel expenses. And then my income covers our bills, our expenses, groceries, things like that. Mm-hmm. And then whatever's left after that, that's how we kind of divide and conquer. But everything is ours. So I have access to his, he has access to mine. There are probably easier ways to do things, but when we got married, this was the simplest solution for us. Because everyone kind of has their own way of doing it. Some people put all the money into one account and then they divert from there. And that is a process that still works. But just so you have an understanding of like how we do those things, we look at the money that comes in for both of us as our money. So when I go to Adam and I say, hey, there's another growth opportunity for me to learn more about social media marketing. It's a class. I'm already in in a group that does this, and it's the same would you call Kelsey a facilitator? Would you call her a mentor?
Yeah, business mentor, business coach.
Yeah, business coach. It's the same business coach that I'm already in a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful community with. And I trust her. Like, I trust her mindset. I trust her values. I also just trust the way that she communicates the stuff that I need to work on. And I was like, hey, like, it's just within budget.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able, I wouldn't go spend more than $100 without saying, hey, you need to know if you see this money come out of the account, what it's for.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually at some point, we'll probably get to a place where if he spends $500, I don't even have to question it, because I'll probably already know what it's for, and we don't have to have that.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, it keeps us both accountable for staying within our means, because my passion for photography, I could spend a lot of money.
I was just gonna say
very quickly.
Hey, that's for both of us,
and
man.
You with your podcast stuff, your equipment, you could spend a lot of money very quickly.
Oh, I mean, like, even the stuff that we're just looking at, each of these mics was $60. This was $150. That tripod was $30.
Yeah, and this isn't even top of the line stuff.
No, I've got a studio lighting kit that's coming today that was $300.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, things just build up, right?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, we have those conversations. We don't hide it from each other. It's not something that's wrong. But there's something to be said for telling someone else about your spending habits. And like, I think there's a couple financial coaches that talk about this. When you start to tell and like look at how you're spending your money, it's one thing to look at it yourself and then you keep it all to yourself. You're like, oh, I spend most of my money. Let's just say arbitrarily, I spend most of my money on shopping at Shein. Oops. But guess what? You keep it all to yourself. You have no one to report that to, but you're just going to keep it internally. You don't necessarily change anything. But the moment I have to tell someone,
it's out there.
And someone that actually, go away, and someone that actually looks at that money and also has responsibility to that same money, and I go, hey, I'm mostly spending on Shein, that would really be a tough conversation for us to have.
And I also just want a little caveat here. We are in a very great spot in terms of having conversations about finances and stuff like that. Definitely hasn't always been the easiest thing to talk about.
No.
Like, when we were in Boston, it was difficult because number one, I was the one out of the two of us that was basically overlooking our finances.
Yep.
And we actually kind of recently really pinpointed this. We had to be really tight. We had to be really tight with finances because our rent was so expensive, where we never really went out in Boston. Like, we rarely went out to drink or anything like that. We rarely went out for dinner, the two of us. Like, we would go have breakfast every month at our favorite diner, Eddie's. Shout out to Eddie's Diner. We love you guys. But other than that, like, there wasn't a whole lot of spending. And I mean, honestly, there were times where, you'd be like, all right, I got to go to TJ Maxx to get stuff. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, $150 later. Like, you're like, I need to go get like a basket. I'm like, yeah, okay, a fucking basket with a bunch of shit in it. Right. And I mean, like, that was I was stressed out about finances a lot. And we pinpointed it a few months ago or a couple months ago, where you were like, honestly, I was in such like a shitty space mentally and emotionally that I was looking for an escape by going to TJ Maxx and buying even two things that made me happy. Yeah.
I mean, that, what do you call it? When you go shopping and it gives you...
Like a shopper's high. I don't know.
Oh my God, there's a word for it.
Like the endorphins?
Yeah, but there's a word for it. Like, when you spend money and you get those endorphins, but there's a word for it. Why am I drawing a blank right now? Anyway, for whatever reason, that was like one of the only things that was actually giving me a sense of like, what's the word I'm looking for?
Happiness, fulfillment.
I guess,
like,
yeah. I mean,
any of the above. Yeah.
Any of the above. I mean, I
hope.
Anything. It removed me from thinking about work. It removed me from thinking about any.
It was a little escape.
Yeah. I mean, I needed it. Like, it wasn't that I wanted it. I needed it. I needed to go to Trader Joe's. I needed to go to TJ Maxx, because if I didn't, and if we went and you went with me, I needed you to be okay with walking around.
And I don't do that.
And you don't do that. I think you've done it 3 times since we've been together.
Yeah.
And one of those times it was because you needed it. We went to Target. We spent 3 hours in Target, and we literally just walked around at everything.
Yeah.
And I was
like, oh, look at these fucking coasters I'm never going to buy.
Yeah, really.
I literally looked at a wall of coffee for like 5 minutes. I was like, look at all these brands of coffee.
Yeah. And I needed that regularly.
Mm-hmm.
I did.
You did. You needed the escape. And I mean, that is what, that situation made conversations about finances like really difficult. And I actually remember 4 or 5 months ago, us having a conversation where I was like, listen, and I was recalling these times, and I was like, yeah, there were times where, I was almost pointing the finger a little bit and being like, hey, if you would have been better at, not spending money, we'd be in a better financial situation. And I remember that conversation because you were just like, you were emotional and like kind of like taken back for a second. And then you were like, literally like, hold up. Let's take a look at it. Like all of this stuff. Like I never went on any big, like giant spending sprees or anything. Like, yeah, I was the one that was making the money, and I was also just putting it towards like the things that we needed to actually do. And I was actually saving money as well. And that's what's helped us to like really not be in a bigger hole. And that was a really big wake up call for me, because I was like, fuck, like what am I, like I'm looking at like the have nots instead of the haves, and I'm not focusing on like the positive side of things. I'm like really trying to point out, you're smirking.
I remember this conversation because I remember looking at you.
I remember it too.
So intensely.
Eyes.
When it hit me, and I did not use nice words.
No.
And I was like, hey, you do realize that I saved us almost $14,000 or $12,000 while we were splitting rent and living in an apartment with another family that had 2 kids and all the extra things, and still managing to keep our finances at this amount and save money. Oh, I was livid.
Yeah, you were mad.
I was livid.
Yeah, and I was like sitting here like accusing you of like, you spent $100 at TJ Maxx and that was not necessary.
And I was so angry.
But that was the thing, like under all of that stress and everything, and again, with us running around, like that actually took a toll on me that I didn't really realize until the start of this year, because I was like, I need to be and want to be just home for like a month, please. Like I literally said that multiple times at the end of this year, but I wanted to make that, like put that little caveat in there, because like although our conversations with finance are like mostly positive, there are some times where they have not been productive, and we've gotten in those sort of arguments, and you've kind of like snapped at me. I was like, oh shit, no, you're right.
Look, even last night, and it was not that it was like a bad conversation or unproductive conversation, but like on Thursdays we do shopping. Like we have to go out for bowling. We will leave early. We bring a cooler. We go to Costco. Now we're kind of in like this Costco run. We love Costco. I love Costco. But we have a budget. We have a budget of about $500 for groceries every month. Between both of us, we try to meal prep, we try to plan, all of those things. Yesterday, I decided to try something just a little different, which was to buy 4 specific recipes that I wanted to cook. And some of those things I don't need to buy in bulk at Costco. I just don't need to. So I knew we were going to have to go to Costco to get some of the things, and then go to Walmart or the Piggly Wiggly or whatever to get the little things. Like,
I just love that name. I'm so sorry.
Piggly Wiggly. And after all of that, we get home and we go, okay, I spent $95 at Walmart and I spent $115 at Costco, and total of one grocery trip is about $215. Okay, that seems like a lot for the first grocery run of the month. And then I look at it and I think about it and I'm like, okay, wait, hold on. I bought specifically for some of these meals, and some of these meals I'm gonna actually make and freeze so we can have them later. And the recipes that I was given are only for single servings. So I'm buying enough to make more than one serving for 2 people. I'm buying enough to do 3 servings, maybe even 4 servings for us. So we're having to kind of like look at things like that and evaluate it. But we came home and we sit on the couch and one of the first things, man, I'm still just thinking about how we just spent $200 on groceries today.
That was me, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm looking at you and I'm like,
well, it was also,
we bought for specific things.
Yeah, it was also because like before we went, I was like, we're leaving in 5 days to go to Canada for 3 or 4 days. So like, you know, let's just buy stuff that we need over the next 5 days. And then we went and spent $200. I'm like, I think we overspent on the next 5 days. And you're obviously bigger picture, like, yeah, but we can freeze this and we can do that, or we do. So it was honestly like a difference of like expectations versus like what actually happened, where I was just like, yeah, we spend $200 on groceries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had to, and so we have to sit there and then I have to break it down for you, and you go, okay, I guess it makes a little bit more sense, but you're also still kind of like a little tick on the side. Like,
yeah.
We spent $200.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I would say that we've been really good about once we kind of figured out what our budget was and we set it, we've really stuck to it. And I mean, sticking to it is the difficult part, but we found a clear path to it. And we stay consistent with it. It's not like we go to Costco one week and then we go to Walmart the next week and then we go to the Piggly Wiggly the next week. Like, we go to Costco, we buy the things that we need, and then if there's 1 or 2 items we have to have, we stop. But we go in with a purpose. And that's a hard, and sometimes
we go into Costco with a purpose.
I go into Costco with my husband to keep me on track. His mother and his so Adam's mom and dad are opposite. So Al is the shopper, and I'm talking shopper. Yeah, like your dad will go into Costco and spend hours.
Oh yeah, he fucking
and
walks,
I will too.
Walks down every aisle.
We are best friends.
My mom's like, I know that when I go to Costco, it takes me 20 minutes in and out. I'm like,
she knows the aisles back and forth.
Dude, she's a robot. It's awesome.
She's great, and I've been to Costco with her, and it's purposeful,
laser focused.
I mean, she's in and out. She knows the route she wants to take, everything. And I walk in, and things are still generally in the same place, but I'm like, ooh. Let's go over here and look at this. Never been down this aisle of clothes. We don't even go to Costco for clothes. But I'm like, let's go take a look at the T-shirts.
Put it this way. When my parents came to visit us, like in October last year.
I still have sauerkraut in my closet. Sorry.
In your closet?
In my refrigerator.
What the fuck is it doing in your closet?
I'm so angry about it. I'm not angry about it, but I mean, like...
But, like, literally, you and my dad going to Costco was, like, a thing in the calendar because you guys were so excited to just walk around and get whatever the fuck you wanted. It was hilarious.
And your dad bought apple pork sausage and sauerkraut, and I still have that sauerkraut in the fridge.
Yeah.
Like half of a container.
Yeah. My dad's going to listen to this episode and laugh so hard. It's going to be fucking funny, man. It's going to be funny. But anyways, yeah, we mostly positive conversations about finances, and one of the things, like I said, I'm really grateful for is just the transparency. Like we're not scared to like be like, hey, there's this $500 thing. I know we're tight, but this is kind of like what I'm thinking, but I really do want your opinion on it. I want to know whether this is something that we should do now or something that maybe I should do in like 3 months or 6 months type of thing. And so we have a lot of great conversation around that, which is something that I think every couple should really have, because I mean, like, you know, it's just really nice to know that I can approach you with kind of anything, to be honest, and you can approach me with anything, and it's not like we report to each other. No. But like with this, especially with the situation that we've been in over the last couple of years, it's just like we want to be open and have that discussion with each other about like where the money is kind of going, just so that we can, you know, the other person, you know, knows what to expect or knows what, you know, where things are going type of thing. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm reporting to you out of fear. It's like, hey, I want to actually discuss this with you.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's us. You know, we've said,
Yeah.
you literally put it in our marriage vows. Like, it's us. It's always us versus anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes money. Even if we get to a place where, let's just say arbitrarily, I don't have to work, and you're bringing in all the money, and I don't have to work. I might choose not to work,
Mm-hmm.
and we're able to do that. That doesn't mean that things just automatically change, and you can, like, you know, you can spend without having conversation with me, and I can spend without having conversation with you. That's not the point. The whole point of us setting this like foundation around communication around it is so that way when things do happen, we're not sitting there like on pins and needles trying to have this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It's, hey, you know, even if it's like with the photo shoot that I did, I paid for the photo shoot, like the base piece of it, with understanding what I was going to have to probably pay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's non-refundable. It was non-refundable money. And I went to you that same day, and I was like, I paid for it. I paid for the beginning of it, and I'm not going to be able to do it. I can't afford the rest of it, and I know I can't afford the rest of it, but I still paid for it.
Yeah.
Because of, you know, X, Y, and Z reasons.
Yeah.
And I had to, but I was not afraid to have that conversation with you. I was more so like, hey, I wanted to do this so badly that I went and paid for it. And then it took me having a moment of silence and like reflection. And I go, I really can't afford it.
Yeah.
But and just tell you that, and for you not to come like be angry with me, you were more so just trying to listen and understand, and we delved deeper than that. But I mean, it was just we've always wanted this foundation of communication,
mm-hmm.
and we keep that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so I just wanted to chat about finances quickly. But anyways, so yeah, so yeah, coming into 2023, we started to do some things for ourselves and our business that have really, really built a lot of momentum. And this is the balance that we sort of talk about, or the boundaries that we sort of talk about. Like when it comes to spending money, even though things are really, really tight, it's like, okay, you know, how is this going to benefit? Or like, you know, whether it's like, what relationships are you going to build, or what skills are you going to learn for your business, or, you know, how could this grow your business? Like, we are asking all those questions and just being really intentional about, like, if we do have to spend money that we didn't anticipate, like, is it going to be sort of beneficial for, you know, the goal that we have, which is for me to do podcasting and the communication workshops, for you to do your photography, right? For us to build this life of working remotely and earning an income, doing things that we're super passionate about. So if they check those boxes, then it's like, okay, you know, yeah, it's another $100 a month, but it's important. Like, mm-hmm. This is something that's actually going to, you know, if you are going to dedicate the time to this, then it's definitely sort of worth the money. And so the Thank University stuff that we started doing, the business coaching, business mentoring, business accountability group, whatever you want to call it, we do it every Wednesday, and it's been so amazing in terms of like really shifting the mindset. Like for me, it's been really, it's really given me permission to like I've been able to give myself permission to go 100% in mm-hmm. on both of the things, podcasting and the communication workshops. And like we're surrounded by entrepreneurs, we're surrounded by like-minded people. Some of them are doing their entrepreneur stuff full-time. Some of them are doing other things full-time and doing their, you know, businesses part-time or whatever. Some have kids, some don't. But it's been really, really amazing to be surrounded by those people and have those people as like an accountability group, and really just a sounding board for different ideas, because we get on those calls. They're only 1 hour a week, but we talk about, you know, a lot of different things, and we're able to get source ideas from people and to really kind of, keep the momentum going behind, you know, what we do each week. So that's been really helpful. Even though it's, you know, costing another $100 a month. Yeah. And another thing that, you know, was really helpful, basically coming into the year, like I said, my Canadian account was getting super low. Both of our US accounts were getting low, and we had about $10,000 in credit card debt and my student loans to pay off. And I was able to basically reconnect with an old friend in Canada and get hooked up with his company to do some social media work for them, which is now bringing in about $1,100 every 2 weeks. So like that happened January 3rd, where we signed the contract for that. Yep. And so that was a huge help, because it was like my bank account, my Canadian bank account was literally at $82, man. Like it was so low. And I had asked my parents to cover like a month worth of my, interest payments, because that's how low it was getting. And that's not an easy conversation to have a lot of the time. But I was like, man, I got to do it. Like I got to fucking ask, because if I don't, then like we're kind of putting ourselves in a deeper hole. So I signed that contract for, I think it was 16 weeks. So it's coming to an end shortly, but still got a few weeks left of that. But that's been super helpful. And then I was able to secure a lot more communication workshops for the next like 3 to 4 months. So in my calendar, because those workshops are confirmed, there is a good amount of money that's going to come in over the next 3 months. And so with that, with all of that information, and you also made an important switch to food and beverage.
Yeah, I switched from working in the pro shop to working in food and beverage. So I'm making my minimum wages now $2.50, but I make tips. As
a server, yeah, your wage is $2.50, which is a fucking joke. But it's okay, because you get to make tips, which is awesome. So with all of the stuff that was happening on my side with the communication workshops, I was able to stop working at the golf course. I slowly sort of weaned out of that and went from 3 days down to 1 day. And then eventually, I think 4 or 5 weeks ago, was my last shift. And I was super happy.
Cut the umbilical cord.
Super happy about that. You made the shift to food and beverage, and almost immediately it was 100% worth it. But the thing was, we looked at that and we were like, okay, so your first training shift was, you were training, and then your first shift on your own, you made $250 in tips. Your first full shift, and it was a 12-hour shift. So you went from working 6-hour shifts at the pro shop to now working 3 12-hour shifts at food and beverage. But your first shift ever, food and beverage, after training, you made $250 in tips. For a whole week of pro shop, you would make $180. So like the difference was huge. And in that moment, we were like, why the fuck didn't we do this earlier? And they were like, oh yeah, we needed like all of the flexibility possible. We actually looked into you being in food and beverage first, and it was not going to work because of the hours and because of, there wasn't as much flexibility there.
Yeah, the manager, she was not able to accommodate our schedule at that time.
Yeah.
So because of that, I had to make the decision to stay in
pro shop. Yeah.
And then she realized that I was loyal and that I would stay during the slow months. And then she was like, you have the personality to come over here. And I was like, yes, I do. Please take me.
Yeah. So literally, like, after that first shift where you made $250, and right around that same time was the time where I got probably about 8 or 9 more workshops secured over the next 3 months. And that was when we were both like literally sat down on this porch and looked at our bank accounts, and we said, we got fucking $1,300 to our name right now. But we are so happy. Like, we are super happy just because we know that we are doing the things that we love. Like, I had been really starting to build up momentum with the podcast. Things with the communication workshops were picking up, and my boss saw, because I secured 2 workshops for universities at the end of 2022, he was very much like, Adam, like you've got what it takes to do business development, so like let's get you into a part-time role where you can earn another $2,000 a month basically. So things were picking up there. You were things just felt more aligned, because at the pro shop you weren't super happy, because like the people were just a lot more reserved. The energy was a lot lower, and people were kind of gloomy, to be honest. And so you were just like, that's not your vibe. Like, you had a really difficult time like working there.
Yeah, and it was funny because I was still feeling better being there than being back in Boston, but at the same time, like, I'm showing up to work and like I just have this mindset of like, I don't care what I'm doing. I could be mopping floors, but I'm going to show up and I'm going to do my job, and I'm going to try to smile and have fun and just present good energy, because if I start the day bad and I start the day with that kind of energy and I don't force myself out of it, that's it. I'm in the hole for the rest of the day. And I don't like it. I don't want to feel that way. And I would get to work sometimes, and again, it's 6:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. Like, I have to get up at 4 just to be at work on time. And I'm just walking in the door. Good morning. How are you? And sometimes I'm louder than that. But I mean, most of the time it's just like, good morning, whoever's there. And sometimes I get a morning back. Sometimes I wouldn't. Sometimes it was just silence. And again, it's fine. Like, a lot of people are like, Shelby, I'm just not awake in the morning. And I'm like, look, like, I'm not doing it purposely to annoy anybody. I'm a cheerful person.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be cheerful. And just like, I won't ask you to be happy, because I don't need you to be happy for me. I'm just going to give happiness. And I would get it all the time. You're just such a light in here. Like, customers coming up to the counter. You just have so much energy. Well, good. I'm glad. You're going to go play golf. Have fun. Have a good day. And, I heard it all the time. And then other people would be in there, and I would just be like, man, guys, like, look, if you don't want to be here, don't be here. Like, go do another job. Like,
yeah.
Like, sure, is this the job I really want to do? Probably not. But guess what? I'm here because I need the paycheck, and I'm going to pay my bills, and man, I'm going to show up and I'm going to be happy.
Yeah.
This person wants to be cranky all day. Let him be cranky.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you moved over to food and beverage, and immediately, like, the people are just more lively, which is really nice. And I know that it makes things a little bit easier for you, just being surrounded by people that kind of want to, do the same thing. Again, it's not like, for some of the individuals, it's not like this is like the end all be all or anything like that. But I mean, even if that is the job that they want to do for however long, like, the people are they have more energy, they're more bubbly, they're more, they want to socialize with you and stuff like that. So it makes it a little bit easier. So, like, that was a big piece alone. Before the money came, that was a big piece. Like, even after your first training shift, you're like, Adam, like, I'm so much this, I know that this is a better environment for me, which was awesome. Then after your first shift, $250, we were like, holy shit. Like, and it was in the beginning of March, I think, or the middle. Yeah, the beginning of March. And so, slow season for golf, right? It's picked up a lot since then, but slow season for golf, and you're making $250 in one fucking day. Like, damn, like, we can, okay, there's a little light. This is the way. Okay, this is better than what we were doing.
Yep.
And so with all of those things, that was like a big reason we looked at, our finances, and we're like, we still have $1,300, but we're fucking happy, man. Like, this is where we're going. All of the things that we did at the end of 2022, like the last 5 months, and going through all of the running around and everything, like, has really allowed us to get to this point where we know that the money is going to take care of it shortly. And now we're in a position where, because finances were, income level was kind of low for the first, couple months of this year, we still have $11,000 in credit card debt right now.
Yep.
My Canadian bank account's a little bit higher, which is awesome. So it's paying for, like, the interest for my student loan.
Yep.
It by no means is it fucking full, but I think I have like $3,000 in there, which is awesome.
It's something.
And
I think we've also just had this big mindset shift to just show gratitude and be grateful for what we have when we have it. And also, really a big shout out to the business coaching that I'm in right now. It's called the Visionary Method. And one of the big pieces to that method is, like, the mindset part of it. And that part is done by Emily, which is actually Blake's wife. And one of the big things that she always talks about is being open to the universe and into your environment, and to being able to receive things and maybe not the way that you anticipate them. So, yes, do I want photography to be what's giving me my income? Absolutely. If photography is bringing me my income steadily, that means I get to drop off something else that's not as fulfilling and is still a chore for me. But because I've had this mindset shift and being more open to however, and still holding my boundaries. Like it's not like all of a sudden I made $250 and I said, okay, I'm going to open up more days. I said, no, I'm still keeping my 3 days. I'm still keeping that schedule. But guess what? I set this arbitrary goal. I was like, you know what? I was lucky if we got $1,000. If I got it like close to maybe $1,000 a month with RTJ, maybe 700.
Yeah, I think the most that you had gotten up to working 3 days at the pro shop was like $1,100.
Yeah. So I got to this point and it was part of one of our exercises and they were working on manifestation and being open to receiving money and finances in any way. And they were like, okay, put a number out there that's more than what you're making now, but make it a stretch. So instead of putting like $2,000, I put $3,000 just to see what I could do in a month. And guess what? I did it. I reached it. Bam. I mean, like I did, and I reached it. And some of it was photography stuff, but the photography stuff didn't come for my financial end. It really just came for other things that created this understanding of how much I need to actually work on and learn. But it also gave me opportunities with my photography stuff. But my finance stuff, it really didn't come from photography. It actually came from just art, from working at the golf course. And guess what? Every day I was thankful. If I made $20, if I made $100, if I made $500, it didn't matter. If I walked out of there with more than I had in my pocket, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, hell yeah. And that mindset shift's been huge, right? Like through the different, and what's interesting is like because we signed up for the business coaching on every Wednesday with Think University with Blake, that opened the opportunity to then be part of the program with Emily.
Yep,
right?
He had a scholarship to give, and
so a $3,000 program became accessible to us because you were able to get a scholarship basically, and
it paid for most of it.
And paid for over I think 80% of it, or something like that. So these connections matter, right? And like the reason, and again, like being intentional about what we invested in has paid off. Like before you getting the scholarship with Emily, like it had paid off in multiple ways because it's allowed us to shift our mindset. And it's still something that we're really focused on. Like for finances specifically right now, one of the things that we started doing is, and we're not great at it, we are literally beginning and trying to figure out what works for us, is that we want to change our mindset around finances, because a lot of the time over the last 2 years, it's been a big point of stress for us. And although we're super happy with where we're at, and we're going to be able to pay off, our $11,000 in credit card debt within the next probably 2 or 3 months, we're in a great spot there. We've realized that we have never really received any sort of formal or informal education about changing your mindset around money.
Yeah. And I think money mindset is actually kind of a new thing in society of being aware of.
I think it's, more like talked about more commonly.
Yeah. So, I think it's becoming more aware that, money's not a problem. Money is a tangible object. That swing cannot be a problem for me. It doesn't hurt me. It doesn't do anything except is exactly where it is. Same thing with money. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. It sits in your wallet or it sits in your bank account. It doesn't have good or bad qualities to it. It is a tangible thing. Like
we assign everything.
Yes. So there's this, I don't know, there's this big epiphany moment of like, stop looking at money as something that's bad. Stop looking at money as something that it's hurting you, or it's doing something to you, or it's causing something. It's not. Yeah. The way that we're looking at it is.
Yeah. And something that you've pointed out from your visionary method classes and stuff is that, and you're going to have to correct me because I don't know if I'm going to say this correctly, but it's essentially like you can't admire the people that have the money, but then also be mad that they have it or something. Like what?
You can't you can't want the money
Mm-hmm.
and you can't want the money and want that amount of money and then also be mad and resentful of the people in their lifestyle that do have it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want, like Emily always says that, you know, if your dream life, if you take a second and you picture what your dream life, dream day, dream whatever looks like. So mine would be flying off wherever because I can, not having to look at my bank account, and coming home and, you know, being able to come home and say, hey, I had an amazing time doing a photo shoot at this destination place, and then go out the next week and say, hey, we're taking a family trip and we're going to Italy for 3 weeks. You know, like if that's my dream, I can't also be resentful of the person that currently has that and has theirs and whatever their spending habits are. Because if the person that has that is also spending money on Louis Vuitton and, you know, going out to eat at all the fancy restaurants, and they have their social media a certain way, that's them. And they have that and they have all of those things for their own reasons.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I can't resent that and be mad about that and also want it at the same time. The universe, like your energy, your body, your mind, and the universe, you can't collide both of those at the same time. They can, those emotions can exist at the same time, but you can't be open to receiving that if you also are resenting the same people that have it. It doesn't, you can't do both.
Yeah.
Because you're putting your own block on getting somewhere.
Preach, girl.
Actually, all credits go to Emily at this moment.
I'll put just like a little fucking disclaimer on top.
Where's my lower third? All property rights reserved to Emily.
Yeah.
But it's true. I mean, it's so true. And sometimes, like, it takes someone else telling you that that's how you have to look at it. And when you actually dedicate your time and energy to switching your brain around to saying, I'm not going to think about it that way, and I'm not going to give this my time and energy. I'm going to give this my time and energy instead. Once you actually did make the decision to do that, it is an astronomical difference of all of a sudden how you look at everything. There not to point fingers, but there are, like, a lot of the girls that I work with, they're all local. They've grown up together. They've gone to high school or elementary school together, or you know, neighboring ones, and they know everybody and every which one. And so sometimes I hear the gossip and I hear them talking about so-and-so and doing whatever, or even employees talking about other employees. And it happens. Like, I don't want to say that it doesn't happen, but guess what? I don't participate. Or my participation is in a different way. So if and this isn't an actual example, but if someone's talking about, you know, someone else that's working and they made a decision to go out and they got really drunk and, you know, this happened and this happened and this happened. You know, instead of my response to that conversation, that I don't know this person, I don't know anything, instead of my response either being silent or being, oh my gosh, did they really? My response becomes, is everything okay? Has anyone checked in on them? And then seeing where that conversation goes, and seeing, and you know, I'm instead in asking the questions, are people okay? Are they comfortable? Are they safe? And then I go, or I go, oh, that sounds like a really difficult problem. And it sounds like they have a lot to work through. And then I go back to doing what I'm doing. Because I'm either going to ask if everyone's okay, if I don't know anything, or I'm not going to entertain it. Yeah. Because the moment I start to entertain it, what gets my energy?
Oh, you went down that hole when you were working at in Boston.
At Bazzuto.
Yeah, because you were...
I wasn't going to name drop, but Bazzuto.
Yeah, because like there was gossip going around in the leasing office, and I mean like...
All the time.
All the time. And it's, you know, it gets to a point where it's difficult to avoid it, and you're kind of in the middle of it, and so you were participating in that sometimes, and that definitely led down like more of a negative mindset
Yep.
road. And so now you're like, nope, not going there again. Like I need to sort of divert like where this conversation is going or reframe it. And I think that's been a really big theme for us like over the last 2 to 3 months is reframing. So anytime, this could be anything from like, oh, maybe one of my podcast episodes didn't go well, or
How about a photo shoot?
Or a photo shoot, yeah, right? Like something doesn't go well and we're like beating ourselves up for it. Like the other person, like, if I guess the photo shoot's a perfect example. Like you had a photo shoot with a friend doing their birthday party and 50th birthday party, and you know, you took the photos and you weren't super happy with like the result, and you're like,
I was actually, I'll go ahead and say, I was immensely disappointed with the result of my photos.
That's fair.
Not with the framing or anything. It was the quality of image, and this is a photographer thing, but my white balance wasn't set. So my pictures had this dark overexposure and this graininess to them.
Mm-hmm.
And for a photographer, that is one of the most difficult things to edit. And I was immensely disappointed because it didn't show to the quality of work I could produce.
Yeah, of course.
And it also was a friend. Like I look up to this woman. Like she's a friend. We drink wine together. I babysit her dogs. Like I just, it hurt me to know that the quality of work didn't match the amount of love and care that I wanted to show through these images.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, like,
it made me so mad.
yeah, and I mean, like, with the reframing, like it wasn't about like telling you that those things were invalid or that you weren't allowed to feel those things. Like you feel everything, that's totally fine. But like it gets to a point where you're like beating yourself up so much that it's like it's damaging and it's detrimental to like your mental state basically. And it's like, okay, Shelby, like pause for a second. We need to reframe this. Like what can be learned from this, or like what are the positives that you can take from this experience? Like if the roles were reversed and I had this experience and I was venting to you about this, or I was just telling you, you know, about how disappointed I was, like what would you say to me? Like what are the things that you would say to me? And you were basically like, okay, I would tell myself that this is a really big learning opportunity, that you know, there are things that I now know that I could have changed on my camera settings to make sure that, you know, I could capture the photos a little bit differently. I would tell myself that to be gentle on myself and not to like beat myself up so much that it damages, you know, my mental state, for example.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. I'm currently in a place where I'm pretty aware. I feel like I'm pretty aware of myself. I'm pretty aware of where my emotional state is, where my mental state is. That doesn't mean it's easy to make any mind shift changes or mental changes, but but I can be aware of them, which makes it easier to communicate, to journal, to do all those other things that I need to do. So like, and that's the thing. We had, for everyone that's listening, this conversation happened yesterday when I was like done editing the photos. It took me 6 hours to edit these photos, and I was done and I sent them. And we had this conversation because I was upset. Like I was genuinely upset, and it was all day. It took me all day. Every time it came up in my brain to just sit there and go, it wasn't your best, but this is what we learned. This is what I learned. Yeah. This is what I can do better. This is what I'm going to actually focus on trying to learn tomorrow, next week, whatever. And I still didn't even feel great at the end of the day about it. And it came up. And then this morning, and also I will add, when I sent them, I didn't get an immediate gratification. I did not get a response back. Mm-hmm. I didn't get any kind of anything back. And I actually called her to...
Like within like 15 minutes of sending her the gallery, because you wanted that sort of validation.
Yeah. And at that point, I felt like I needed it.
Yeah.
And my purpose of calling her was to get it. And it also was to say, hey, I sent them. Have you looked at them? Like that was the thought of running through my head. And she didn't answer. So...
And she didn't call you until this morning.
She did not call me until this morning.
And it was because she was busy with life.
Yeah, she's just busy doing things. And when she called me this morning, she said she loved them. And because it wasn't about the actual quality of the image itself, it was about the moment that I was able to capture.
Mm-hmm.
And which is what I actually like have really formed my business around. You know, I've been trying to form my business around. It's not about what I'm shooting, but it's about what you feel and how it feels what I'm shooting.
Mm-hmm.
So like if the moment is intimate and sweet and precious, I want people to feel that. If the moment is fun and energetic and just lively, I want you to feel that when you look at my photos. I don't and for the person who's looking back at it to like remember that moment and go, I know exactly how I was feeling. And she called me and that's exactly what she told me. And it was a moment this morning where you kind of had to kindly point it out too. It was like, that's the purpose behind me doing the photography work that I do. Like, yes, my goal is to deliver great quality images. And as I get older, my quality is going to always get better and better and better. But the main foundation piece of my work is about shooting what it feels like, not just what it looks like. And boom, I had it. And I cried on the phone with her. And
oh yeah, as soon as she said, Shelby, I absolutely love these, like you broke down immediately because you were so worried about what she was going to say.
And I even had said the day before or 2 days before, I said, if this had been a different client, had this been a client that actually paid for the service, because she's my best friend, I wasn't going to even ask her to pay for it. Also, it was a new opportunity for me, so I definitely wasn't going to ask.
Yeah.
And, but had this been someone else, I would have immediately said, here's the gallery, here's your refund. Mm-hmm. I would have immediately given a refund because the quality of images weren't what I wanted.
Yeah.
But yet here I was with someone that's a close friend of mine, and she calls me the next day and she goes, I love these images. You perfectly captured exactly the moment and what I was feeling, and
nobody else would have been able to capture them that way because of your relationship.
Yes, and she said the same thing.
Yeah.
She said no one else would have been able to capture what you captured.
Mm-hmm.
And
she said, I keep going back through the gallery because sometimes I just miss like I
keep thinking I'm missing one.
Yeah.
And I mean, it just goes to show you, one, mindset shifts do not come easy. They come with an immense amount of self-awareness and consistent self-awareness. Like, you can't be self-aware when it's easy. You have to be self-aware when it's difficult.
Oh God, yeah.
And the difficult points are when you failed, because I would have said I failed at that. 2 days ago, I failed at that photo shoot. I failed at the work. And let me tell you, in the midst of failure, it is so difficult to reframe your brain and say it wasn't a fail, it was actually a success. And to find those pieces of success. It's difficult. You have to be aware, and I don't want to say you're lying to yourself, but you have to actually believe yourself when you say, it wasn't my best, but I found this, but I learned this, but there's a success there. There's a success rate there. It's immensely difficult to do that, and you have to be aware to do that.
Yeah.
And if you have no desire to do it, then it will never happen.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about this morning too. I mean, after the phone call and everything, is very much like, listen, babe, like, I'm super proud of you, because like, you at any point during the actual event, like you could have given up, right? Because like, you knew that the lighting was harsh, and that you hadn't quite practiced. You do a lot of stuff outdoors. You don't really do a whole lot of stuff indoors.
Yeah.
And so like, you knew the lighting was harsh and that things were showing up really orange because of the setting and everything. And you weren't really getting your settings right on your camera and whatever. And you know, you could have given up and you could have been like, you know what, I don't want to give you, you know, mediocre photos or whatever, so I'm just not going to do it. But you pushed through that and you were like, okay, I'm going to do the very best that I can, and I'll try to edit as much as I can to make them, you know, the quality that I want. And you pushed through all that, and you fucking edited for 6 hours, man, on a free photo shoot. Like, that says a lot about your work ethic and how much you care about like the actual photos and delivering that, not only just the what it looked like, but how it felt like. And that's really important to focus on. And yeah, sure, maybe it wasn't like the top-notch high quality work that you want to do, but it'll get you there.
Yeah.
This experience was fucking huge in learning, right? And you are not a failure. You failed at something, or didn't produce the top quality work. Like, you felt like you failed, but there's so many things that you can take away from it. And so like, and this is just one example of the reframing thing. Like, we do this all the time now, and it's actually,
you have road rage, and I'll just be like, Adam, just rethink about it. They might be having a bad day.
Yeah, 100%.
And then it happens 3 more times, and I'm like, I don't know if I can help keep reframing this for you.
Yeah, but at first, like when we started the reframe, like it was irritating, to be honest, because, you know, in the moment, like you're feeling a certain way and you're kind of in your shit, and you say like, fuck, like that didn't go the way that I wanted it to. And you'd go reframe, and you look over and you're just like looking over at that one like super positive friend being like, fuck you, dude. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why can't I just live in this? But then you're like, okay, no, it's important. Like, I need to reframe this. Okay, that did not go the way that I wanted it to. However, here's what I can take away from it to help me take the next step and the next step and the next step. And I think that this reframing has been really helpful, and we've now turned it into like this positive thing where if you say something that is negative or whatever, or I say something that I'm like really frustrated on, I'm focusing so much on, you know, the have-nots, we literally go reframe,
Yeah.
like in a joking voice, but it's just the signal to like break the pattern of thinking and to try to retrain ourselves to think positively.
Yeah.
Right. And to be grateful for what we do have in the moment. I think it's been really helpful so far, and we're going to keep doing it.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's also important to say, like, this isn't in a way to say or ignore the emotions behind it.
No,
you know,
God,
like,
no.
Like, that's not the point. There's no point. There is nothing beneficial for hiding your emotion, whether it's extreme happiness or sadness or disappointment or whatever. You've got to let those emotions come in and go out. And actually, one of the biggest things that, like, disclaimer for Emily, has actually like really taught me in the mindset piece is feelings of anxiety or doubt or anything like that. You have to show that it's there, and you have to actually even show the gratitude that it's there, because it's there for a reason. You know, like anxiety, all of those things, when they pop up, something triggers it, but it's also triggered for a reason. So whether you're learning about yourself, or whether you're learning about something that's a big trigger point for you, or whether your body is naturally reacting to a changing environment. So you're getting better, you know, okay, so I'm taking Italian lessons, and I'm getting better at my Italian lessons. Okay, but then so I decided to do a live coach. And then I get into that live coach, and then all of a sudden, like before I like sign on, there's that anxiety, there's that gut bubble feeling in my stomach, and I'm like, shoot, I'm nervous. Nerves are good. It doesn't mean the thing that I'm about to do is bad. It doesn't mean that that's coming up for a negative reason. I have to say, hey, thank you, nerves. Thank you, anxiety, for showing up. Yes, we're about to go through an uncomfortable state, but here's the deal. I need to push through this. So thank you for showing up and letting me know that things are changing. But this is why they're changing, and I'm going to actually move past this, and you take the step forward.
I fucking love that.
And it's, when I tell you, this was 2 weeks ago. It helps. It helps so much. And for me, like I struggle with anxiety. I struggle with depression. I struggle with those things, and I'm constantly looking for tools to use to get past those moments, because it's difficult sometimes. Like there are days when it's bright and sunny outside, all that stuff, and I want to be in a dark dungeon. I don't want anyone to tell me I'm okay. I don't want anyone to tell me anything. I just want to soak in my depressed misery, whatever it is. And I have to be aware of myself enough to go, I know things are changing. I know something's different about today, but I'm going to do one thing today that's not in this bubble of darkness, depression, anxiety, whatever. I'm going to do one thing that I love. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to go cook. I'm going to go do something. Well, the moment you go do something that you actually love to do, even if it's just one thing, that's not social media, all of a sudden it's like there's a reaction, like a snowball reaction, and then all of a sudden you'll go do one more thing, and then one more thing, and it's all because you're able to go, okay, I know you're here. Depression, anxiety, fear, whatever it is, I know you're here. Thank you for being here. I'm totally aware. Thank you for telling me and my body that this is happening and that this change is happening, but we're going to take a step forward. Yeah. So you accept, you acknowledge, you say thank you, and then you keep moving forward. Changing your mindset is not easy, and it takes an immense amount of self-awareness, and you got to do it when it's hard, and it's sometimes it doesn't sound fun. Sometimes it actually sounds really fearful and hard. And, you know, for the ones that kind of believe it, kind of don't, maybe even sounds a little wishy-washy, but it is so helpful. And as I said before, I could be in a dungeon for the rest of my life and I will still do it. I will still work at finding any positivity I can, because living in negative space and negativity, it's draining, and it's why. Yeah. Like,
and I think what kind of tying into something that we said earlier that I think is important with the like facing the emotions and what you're just talking about is that when it's easy, right? It's easy to stay self-aware. It's easier to stay self-aware and to like keep pushing the momentum and everything. When it's difficult, like when times are difficult, like it's obviously really tough to do that. And that's when you really need the support of your partner. Yeah. And that starts with open, honest, transparent communication. And that's where it started for us, because like, if I'm not able to tell you that I'm struggling, like you'll kind of know, right? I mean, like you'll know, but like if you don't know everything that's going on, then it's difficult for you to support, right? And vice versa. Yeah. And so like that open, honest, transparent communication really allows you to like fully lean on the other person. And in those difficult times, like we let each other, you know, kind of navigate our own waters, but we're always watching, we're always observing. Yep. And we know sort of when things are off. And the more that we have these types of conversations and experiences, the better we get at understanding like when to interject and when to not. Yep. And during those difficult times, like there are going to be moments where you need the other person to like give you a dose of reality, or like, you know, or to give you a kick in the ass, or to just give you a fucking hug and like support you, right? But like I think having the partner there during those difficult times is super important.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And there's also that piece to it that you and I have also always done from the beginning too, is I want you to live as authentic as possible. And I want you to let me live as authentic as possible. No matter what that means, no matter what that comes to, you know, you're my best friend, you're my partner, you know, like it is what it is. And sometimes that also means that we've gotten to a place where sometimes that means we have to tell each other, hey, I love you. Do not come talk to me for the next 5 hours, 6 hours, because I need to get stuff done. I can't be interrupted. And while I love you, even if it's something small, unless it's an emergency, please do not come interrupt me. And that was a little hard for me because I just need some love and attention and cuddles a lot, but it also is one of those things that it allows for that autonomy with ourselves, and it also gives us that boundary to go, because sometimes you need to work without emotion, and I'm just an emotional person all the way around, almost 90% of the time. I would even say 95% of the time. I live and work with whatever emotion I'm currently experiencing. And sometimes you need to just turn it off to focus and get things done. And when you get in that state, sometimes it's really difficult for me to navigate you.
Mm-hmm.
And we learned that sometimes it's necessary, and sometimes sometimes it's just having that communication of, hey, look, I'm not going to be present in this moment because this is what I need to do, and that's okay. And then you find like that time frame, and then you keep going and you keep moving forward. It doesn't mean that you stay like that forever, but it means that we have to have that communication to go, I need to do this for myself, and I need to do this for my business, whatever. And when I come back to you, I'll come back to you in a state that's fully present and ready and all of those things. And it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Absolutely. It's okay. Yeah. Oh man, we've been through a ton of shit. And this has been a really good talk.
It's been 2 years,
mm-hmm.
and it's been 2 years of marriage, 3 years of a committed relationship. We've been through COVID. We've been through intimacy issues. We've been through
intimacy challenges.
We've been through intimacy challenges. We've been through financial challenges. We've been through
moving a number of times. Our roommates got deported. Like we had to fucking figure shit out real quick.
I mean, I mean, I hate to say you name it, but I mean, like, we've been through a lot.
We have.
I've lost a family member. I mean, it's been a whirlwind of trial and error of figuring things out. And I think it just speaks to those early years in marriage that even if you're with somebody for 8 years, for 15 years before you marry them, when you actually get married and you decide to live under the same roof, and you're sharing and coexisting in the same space and spending time together regularly,
mm-hmm.
you have to have a foundation in place and ready, because man, like, I can't imagine, like, I couldn't imagine like going through it with any of like my previous partners and spouses. I haven't been married before, sorry, but I just couldn't, like, I couldn't imagine, because there wasn't a foundation piece there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that's just, we're keen on creating. And like, yes, like, we made an immediate foundation piece, but like, our foundation piece is still growing as we build up.
Yeah, 100%.
And, you know, as we expand our foundation, we fix any cracks that are in it before we keep moving up.
Yeah, well, and this actually ties in really well with something that I wanted to mention before we wrap up, is that one thing that's been super, super helpful over the last even 2 months, but the last 4 months, something that we struggled with, but the shift has helped us a lot, is scheduling.
Oh, yeah. Yes, let's talk about the calendar.
We'll briefly talk about it. Back in December, I mean, again, we were kind of entering this year where I didn't have a ton of workshops scheduled yet, and we still had a lot of financial issues, and I hadn't signed the contract with my friend's company and stuff like that. So there was a lot of stress. And it's very much like this, all right, like, I'm going all in with social media so that I can like build a following and stuff like that. And I started this like 90-day video challenge, for example, and fucking 5 days into it, you know, you're looking at me like, Adam, like, what are you going to do for the holidays, man? Like the Christmas is coming up in like literally less than 3 weeks. And we've got plans to, like, you know, go visit family and do this. And I want to do things with you. And like, these videos are taking you 4 to 6 hours to make, like,
per day.
And I'm making one video a day for 90 straight days. Like, you know, where was the thought in all this sort of stuff? And it came up of like we don't even, you know, we haven't been on a date night in a while. Like, we don't have these times like set aside for us, like, what's going on? And so it didn't happen right away. We kind of had to go through our little, you know, trials and tribulation with that. But then over the last 2 months, like, we've been like, okay, you know, things have gotten more clear in terms of like me doing half the time podcasting, half the time communication workshops, and you doing half your time food and beverage at the golf course, half the time photography. So that has kind of really helped us to kind of narrow our focus. But it was also, even when we started doing those things and it was a little bit more clear, there was still some sort of like disconnect because there was no schedule basically going on between us. And you were basically like, Adam, why don't we schedule like date nights? Like, as weird as that sounds, like, why don't we actually schedule date nights? And like, Adam, like we keep talking about going hiking, but we haven't done it, type of thing. Like, can we please actually do something about it? And actually, literally that day, we were like, you know what? That's a really good point. Like, let's schedule hiking, right? And literally, we looked at our calendars and we were like, hey, we can't do it next weekend. Let's do it in 2 weeks. Like, let's put it in the calendar, blocked off time.
Yep.
To actually go hiking. And since then, we've actually now in our calendars, the coffee dates were there before, but now every Saturday from 6 to 12, the first half of the day is a cleaning day.
Yep.
It's only cleaning because we're like, okay, we're not going to try to do this, Adam, let's unpack in 15 minutes thing. We're going to try to do something that's a little bit more sustainable because you operate differently, and we also just cannot tackle everything in one day.
Yep.
So do you want to, give your perspective on scheduling quickly?
Yes, I do. Scheduling is one of those things that I think comes easy for a lot of people. And then for a lot of other people, it does not. First of all. Second of all, I think there's an art to it. Yes, you can be as diligent as you want in your scheduling. And for some people, that helps a lot to put a lot of detail into it. And then for others, you can't put a lot of detail into it. And it just needs to be blocked off time for specific, like, general concepts of things.
Yeah. And for me, like, I'm fine with when I need a little bit of structure, but room to be
flexible,
spontaneous and flexible. And I really struggle with getting started with structure. Like, that's where my brain is like, no.
Yeah. And I had tried to get you to do the structure, but like, probably say even like a month before we had brought it up in a coffee date. And I remember having the conversation and going, I can just get it started for you. And you had some hesitancy about it. And I said, look, I'm good at setting it up. If you want help, I'm here. And it actually led you to just doing it yourself. And I think you finally found like that rhythm and like realization of like how much it was helpful. Oh,
I fucking, for like a week or a week and a half, it took me to actually put together like an initial structure. Like, it was not easy.
I was about to say, structure just doesn't come naturally for you.
No.
Which is funny because you're an analytical person. So like numbers do, but when like structure in terms of just like really creating like a system, sometimes that doesn't come naturally for a lot of people. But once you figured it out, it's helped. And it's also one of those things that, like, you and I, we've always said this, like, we're on our own paths of life, but we're just holding hands and walking side by side. So like, your path can go loop-de-loop-de-loop-de-loop, and it's not necessarily that I'm walking the path with you, but I am holding your hand while you do it, and you're holding my hand while I do mine, because we support each other in whatever path this world and this life takes us. And because of that, and because of this notion of we are individuals doing this crazy journey of life together, it really means that like we're both kind of operating like in our own little bubbles, kind of like, I would say like 85% of the time. And then like our bubbles just kind of like overlap for certain things like meals and quality time and sleep and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and even just like sharing fucking office space, like even something that sounds so not meaningless, but so small, like that can seem so small, is like right now with our house setup, like we have your office in the living room, and then my office is like in the spare bedroom.
Yep.
And so when I completely stopped working at the golf course, and you were still working there doing food and beverage Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Originally, I had my podcast set up where I was basically doing podcast work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And eventually it came up, you're like, Adam, like it'd be really, really helpful if I could have my office on Wednesday, because like I would really like to spend that day like kind of getting organized in some things and really not being rushed, and then being able to do photography stuff like in the afternoon on Wednesday because I have my business classes, but then using Thursday and Friday to like really go, deeper into that. So I adjusted my schedule to basically be like, all right, I'm going to do podcasting Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, because you're gone for 12 hours during the day. So I can do all of my recordings in the office that's in the living room because it's more comfortable and just more functional. And then I can do my, my other research work and the communication workshops in the other office, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, because like that space is more appropriate for it. And then I'll just take Saturday off. Like Saturday will be my off day.
Yeah. And by making those shifts and stuff, and by, again, putting things in the calendar, we're just able to function with better intention together. 100%. Like, and I think that's really what it came down to, is like being able to make decisions for ourselves and as a couple and for our space and everything, but being able to just do those things with intention and looking at a calendar and going, will we have the bandwidth? Will we actually have the bandwidth to do this said thing at this time on this week by looking at what we already have? Yeah. And sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes that answer is no. And sometimes the answer is no, but yes, we're going to do it. Yeah. But we're able to make informed, intentional decisions really just because we put it on a calendar. Yeah. And we're able to look at our schedules and go, this is what you have. This is what I have. And we're able to do it. There's a thing called Skylight, I think is what it's called, the frame thing. And we even talked about getting that because that's it's like putting up a calendar in your
it's like a digital calendar.
It's like a digital calendar, and it can combine all of the calendars together. We've talked about even getting that as a tool to use. We haven't made the jump yet, but I mean, Adam doesn't like a lot of digital technology in the house.
No, I don't mind digital technology. I just think Google. It's fucking redundant. Yeah, don't get... that's another conversation.
But, I mean, again, like, it's just about knowing, like, those tools and resources, especially when you... And, like, for families that have more than one kid, or even if you just have one kid and one parent's working or both parents are working, to have a schedule and you can just list out what's coming up, what's going on, and to actually utilize a calendar in a productive way, it makes the biggest I don't even know difference. Difference. Yeah. Like it makes such a great tool to use it and to actually use it.
I'm really interested to see how it goes when we do start having kids.
Every kid's gonna have their own calendar.
Yeah. But right now, I think what's really important is, and what I think really summarizes our, like the main benefit of the scheduling and everything is you and I, like we know that one of our top love languages is quality time. And scheduling helps us protect our quality time. It helps us to be intentional about it, like put it physically in the calendar and say nothing else is to be scheduled here. This is our time, and to hold that boundary firm around that so that we can be present in that moment. Yep. You know what I mean? Like that's the big thing, like to protect our quality time and to be present, because like if we didn't have that structure, and when we didn't have this structure, it's like, oh, I got to go do this. I got to go do that. Like, and sometimes my mind wasn't fully present for our coffee dates, for example. Right. But now it's like, no, I fully know that this is a 6-hour block of time every Friday for our coffee dates. This is a 6-hour block of time for our cleaning. Right. And those numbers might not work for everybody, but it's the point of being intentional and protecting your quality time with one another and making sure that you invest in your actual relationship with the other person, like deep, meaningful time with them. And I think a perfect example of this was a couple weeks ago. There was me and you were going hiking. We were driving up to Oak Mountain State Park on Saturday morning, going hiking. And I was part of like an online podcasting event that week. But we had basically scheduled this this hiking day together. And on the way there, I found out about this spontaneous opportunity where I might be able to be on like a LinkedIn live show with 2 top LinkedIn influencers. And I was like, I read the email out loud and we were talking about it. And we were like, you know what? Like, there may be times where we, you know, if it's super, super like important or something, that we might be a little bit flexible with it. But right now, like, this opportunity could come up another time. It's not like this is a one-off, right? And, you know, we scheduled this time for ourselves. So like, let's protect that, because essentially it would have been like, I would have had to submit a form and I might have been on a LinkedIn live call, and it would have either, you know, interrupted the time that we were going to spend doing a little bit of shopping, or it was going to delay the time that we started our hike.
Yep.
And it was like, you know what, that's not worth it. And
the other part of that was too, is that you were potentially going to be sitting like in a waiting room, like online, and we didn't know how long you would be sitting in a waiting room, and then so you're like on the call, but you're not active on the call, waiting for your turn. So it was just like
it could have been like 2 hours where I was just not fully present with you, and it wasn't worth that sort of interference. And it was also, we were looking at it longer term. We want to build the habit of protecting our quality time. We don't want to, you know, start making exceptions and then that become the norm. Like, that's not the point of scheduling this time. The point is to actually protect our quality time.
And that was difficult for me to say that to you.
Of course, yeah.
Because I remember you looking at me going, "What do you think?" Which is very common between us. We always give the person the room to express whatever you're feeling and whatever emotion is around whatever idea comes up, without pre-susception or you know, whatever words I'm trying to use. I've lost words. But for me to be able to say, hey, I think the opportunity is great, but if we start now with letting things come into our space that we've dedicated to ourselves as a couple, I think that isn't a good habit to have, because if we start now, what's going to stop it the next time, or the time after that? And if things are going to interrupt it, where are they on a priority scale? And like, what's the impact that has over our coffee date, and then going from there.
Yeah, exactly. And so we made the decision to basically say, nope, that opportunity, it's not worth interfering with our time right now. So it's just, again, it's just the main message I want to share is that it's just helped us to protect our quality time and to really be present with it.
And it gives ourselves accountability too, of being present. And it sounds funny that you need that in a relationship, but sometimes you do, because like, both of us are fully focused in our jobs and in our future career paths and in our passions. We are fully in.
Yeah, and a bunch of other people are too, right?
Yep.
Of course.
Like, but we're also fully in with each other. And that's the other thing too, is that you can. There's this notion that like, oh, you can't have it all. Well, you know, we'll be the anomaly. We're gonna find a way to have it all, including a balance with ourselves and the outside world, but still being successful. Just because one missed opportunity occurs because we prioritize ourselves doesn't mean that more opportunities aren't going to come. You have to be able to see it from a perspective of, you get to pick and choose the dreams and the path that you follow, and that also comes from the opportunities that you pick and choose from as well. Yeah,
100%. You're my person.
You're my person.
And I'm going to keep dedicating time to you, baby.
I'm so glad that's recorded. Me too.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, I mean, we're sharing all of this experience not to tell you what to do or what not to do. It's just talking about it, to be honest. It's literally just to show that, like, whatever you see about us online, on Instagram or whatever, those are moments in time. Like, those are moments in time, and we're going through stuff just like everybody, you know? Like, we have our own stuff, you've got your own stuff.
If you think he didn't get mad at me a couple weeks ago for not folding my clothes and putting them away, you're wrong.
100%.
It happens.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing. we want to do, we want to build the life that we want to live. And I know if you're listening, you want to build the life that you want to live with a couple and to maybe do things differently than what you've been told. And, this is just a conversation about different experiences that we've had, what we've learned along the way. And if any piece of what we talk about can help somebody else, even one person or one couple, like that's what it's all about, right? Like we want to just put one more conversation, open, honest, vulnerable conversation about relationships and marriage and coexistence, like out there to potentially help somebody else in one way in their life.
Yeah, and if you're listening and there's anything of this if you've made it all the way through, because I'm sure this is going to be an 1.5 to 2 hour episode. If you make it all the way through and there's things that you want to hear us talk about, or things that you think are important to press on that we haven't touched on, or maybe we only touched the surface, let us know, because I think at the end of the day, we know the importance of sharing our story and sharing those things, and it is, and my, I'm thinking of like how traditional some of the people are around us, and they're going to go, oh my gosh, you're sharing so much. And it's like, yes, we are, but it's because we see a greater purpose of what it serves to help other people. And the truth is, we want to help.
100%.
We know how important it was for us to get advice and information from other people when we were deciding to get married and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's immensely informative of just when you're able to get actual knowledge from people. This is what I experienced. Doesn't mean it's what you're going to go through, but this is what I experienced. This is how we decided to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably what we could have done differently, but this is what we did, and this was the outcome. You get so much information and knowledge just from listening to those stories, and we want to give that to as many people as we can.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, that's something that we've always done, is to ask couples. We've literally asked couples that have been, dating for 6 months, married for 5 years, married for 50 years, people that have gone through multiple divorces. Like, what is it that what have you learned about being in a relationship? Or what are your do's and don'ts? What are your best practices? What do you
think is most important?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had a lot of conversations with people, and not every piece of advice that is given is what we've implemented in our relationship. That's not the point. The point is to have more conversations with other people, so that you and your partner can have, more conversations with yourself, and you can be more intentional about how you want to operate and what life you want to build. Because I mean, like, at the end of the day, like, you're spending so much time together, so you might as well be, all in with that person, and being able to fully, rely on that person and be fully open and transparent with that person, because like, there's nothing more special than that. I mean, you've taught me to love a lot deeper than I thought I could love. I don't know if I've ever told you that.
You haven't, but that's really cute.
But it's true. You've taught me to love, like, really unconditionally, like truly unconditionally, and to, push my ego aside and let somebody in to see every bit of me. And like, that has meant the world to me. And if me sharing my perspective for fucking 2 hours on a podcast episode helps somebody else do that, like, that's all that matters. Oh. Yeah. I'm gonna make you cry.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make myself cry a little bit. I didn't expect to say that or to feel that, but oh man. To wrap things up, I have 2 questions for both of us to answer. I didn't tell you that this was happening. So.
Oh, I knew there was a secret. I knew it.
I thought about it as the episode was, as we were recording this. So 2 questions I want to know, and you can answer first, or I can answer first. Totally
Banana
up to
pancakes. I don't know the answer.
Hey, that could be an answer. My 2 questions are, number 1, what are you struggling with right now? Number 2, what are you most excited about right now? Banana pancakes might be an answer, but to both of those.
That's so funny. I would say right now, I think what I'm struggling with the most right now is, it's actually probably 2 things. One is being okay with our level of sex, is being okay with it, and knowing that there's no there's no magic number of times to have sex. There's no magic number of, you know, anything around sex. Like you know, some people will say, oh, you need to do it regularly. You need to do it 3 times a week. You need to do it once a week. You need to do whatever. I'm going to go ahead and take all the pressure off of everybody listening. There is no magic formula ever. There is no magic formula ever. Is it important?
A little lizard.
It really just came over here, stared me down, and walked away. There's no perfect formula for it. There's no perfect sequence for it. And for someone that has struggled with sexual intimacy, it is a ongoing thing of just learning to accept and be okay with it, and to know that whether it's too much, too little, it's okay, no matter what. At the end of the day, it's always okay, and that it's always a conversation with us. But I will say, the pressure has gone away.
It definitely has. Yeah.
And I think that for a while there was that pressure that we had to, and that's no longer there. And it's not about that, because it's not about that it's not ever about not wanting to, or that you don't want to. It's more about being intentional with that time. Sometimes it is just, hey, I really need this. But a lot of times it's more about the connection that we get from that. And I think that's where you and I both are like, we can get that in different ways. It doesn't strictly just have to be in the bedroom. So one is just struggling with accepting that, because I've gotten better, but I'm still struggling with it. The second thing is struggling with the acceptance around where my business is and where I want it to be. Because I see it. I see where I want my business to be, my dream, my passion, all of it. I literally see it. I see the road. I see how windy it is. I see how crazy it is. I see the boat that I have to take along with the drive. I see it all. I see all of it. And I know it's attainable. It's within reach, and I can grab it, and I can hold it, and I can smell it, and I can tell you what it feels like. But I'm not there, and that's immensely difficult to accept. And it's even more difficult to accept it from a place of, not only do I want to be successful for myself, but I want to be successful for us. And I want to be successful for our family. And redefining success, and redefining that happiness, and all of that, and finding it every day, instead of trying to find it in this arbitrary, like, dream bubble that I have pictured, and like waiting to get there and then to feel all of that there. I want to feel it. I'm
along the way. Yeah.
I want to feel it along the way, and I'm practicing feeling it every day. And this comes with the mindset shift. This comes with a lot of other things, but I know that if I work to achieve this level of happiness, when I reach this pinnacle goal, I will never, like, I might get there, but then what am I going to feel when I get there? Happy for a day? Well, then what's next after that? I want to.
Yeah, you're not chasing this feeling of happiness.
Yeah, so I'm reframing this thought process of success, and it's a struggle by a long shot, because again, you're talking about,
it's difficult.
Well, you're talking about reframing the way that we've operated for all school, how school trained you, how college trained you, and then you get into the workplace, and that workplace might train you a different way, and then finally, if you're lucky enough, you get on this path of like self-discovery and passion of your own entrepreneurship. If you are an entrepreneur, or even if you're not, like if you're lucky enough to get to that point, and you work enough to get to that point, there's a lot of reprogramming that you have to go through to see more than just this line. And I'm finally starting to get there, but it's work, and it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of pressure that I put on myself, and me realizing that I don't have to. So
boom.
So that's what I'm struggling with.
Cool. I'll go with the struggling, and then we can talk about exciting things. Quick note on the second struggle that you mentioned there. I think that was a really big struggle for me, and it's something that I've been able to come to terms with over the last 2 months. I'm still not perfect at it. That's never the goal. Because perfection does not exist. We literally just talked about that this morning. But with adding the structure to my calendar, like that you started and that I've continued to do, it's really it's really helped me reframe the way that I approach business and life. And it's just like, I'm not going to get there in one day, but what can I do today to get a little bit closer? And the scheduling has really helped me sort of reframe that. And specifically even the scheduling of our cleaning days on Saturday, as weird as this might sound, because like I said, my mindset is usually get home, unpack in 15 minutes, or fucking just get everything done in a day, all or nothing type of stuff. But with the conversations that you and I have had around that, and now scheduling Saturday morning as a cleaning day.
For both of us.
Yeah,
we both actively do it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's not just one or the other. It's literally like a combined cleaning day, 6 hours every day on Saturday. And we don't always just do 6 hours. Some days, some weeks it's 2 hours. Some weekends it's 8 hours, like whatever it is. But like we just kind of, that is our focused time for cleaning. And doing that has allowed me to really start to accept like, okay, Adam, we're not going to clean this house in 2 days. Mm-hmm. We're not going to get it all done at once. And you know, Shelby has a different capacity than you do in terms of how much cleaning you can do at one time. Like, this is going to be like, this is the way to do it. Just focused, intentional, and honestly, like a little, like almost stress-free. Mm-hmm. Before, I was really stressing myself out to do that. And I did the same thing with entrepreneurship and with my businesses before. And now it's more of like, all right, I accept that I'm not going to get everything done today. What can I do today to get a little bit closer?
I just kind of had an epiphany.
What's up?
Think scheduling, going one step further than what it physically does, it allows you to see the process. Yeah. You don't necessarily see the growth that you have during that process, but all of a sudden, like when you actually look at it, you see the process that you're taking. Mm-hmm. Business, life, both of them. Like when you put it on a calendar, and then all of a sudden, somewhere in there, you'll look back and you'll go, man, look at how far I've come. And you literally will have it listed out of the amount of days, the amount of hours you've spent doing things. Mm-hmm. And now, it just like, I'm having this big aha moment.
Well, yeah. And for me, it's very similar. It's also like I have more trust in myself that I'm putting in the work, and not just work to be busy, but work to be productive, work to make progress. And not every day's a great day. Like, don't get me fucking wrong. Like, scheduling doesn't cure everything. Like, some days I get distracted and I do a bunch of shit that I didn't need to do, or I do things that I was supposed to do, but I do them poorly. Like, it doesn't fix everything, but it does help me to be more intentional about my time. And it also kind of gives me that track record, like you're talking about, where I look back and I was like, yeah, I did put in the work to actually get here, type of thing. So anyways, just quick side note on that. Mm-hmm. What I'm struggling with right now, two things, and they're kind of related. Lately, especially with the PodFest event that happened, like with where it was just literally working an absurd amount for the last 2 weeks, on just meeting a bunch of people and everything. Like, my body is telling me to just grind. Oh, okay. My body is telling me that it's okay. Like, the struggle that I'm having is like, I want to have a morning routine, because when I have had that, and even recently when I've had that, it's been really helpful to, like, first of all, just prioritize me for an hour every day before I get started into the world. But it's also like, aside from that, there's mental, emotional, and physical benefits from doing that, including like legitimately working out, regularly and stuff like that. So I want the morning routine, but right now, especially because like we've made a lot of progress and like there's so much opportunity, like my brain's doing what you described, where it's like where I'm at and where I want to be are this big gap, and my brain's telling me to go and to do it nonstop. And I know that that's not the healthiest and most sustainable way to do it.
Well, you also might not get there because your body might physically not actually keep up with you.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. And so that's where I'm struggling right now. So something that was awesome was 2 days ago on Wednesday during our Think University session, Blake brought in like an all-star salesperson. Her name is Marla Madison. And fuck, she helped. Gedgif, exactly what I was going to bring up. She is Grace, Ease,
Joy,
and Flow.
Grace, Ease, Joy, and Flow is what that stands for.
Yeah. So she's an all-star salesperson. Like, she's phenomenal. She's like, I sell my high ticket items are, you know, $250. My program is $250 for $250,000 for 6 months, or $36,000 for a month. That's what she charges nowadays for her clients, which is fucking incredible. But
in one sales call with a group of us, we all were like,
oh my God,
if we had the money, we would pay for you right now.
Yeah. She in 45 minutes, she helped us to like really reframe, like, our perspective on being a salesperson and actually getting sales. But one of the important acronyms, like, I basically volunteered, and I was telling her about the opportunity that I have right now. And she literally said, without me telling her about the current struggle, she literally said, Adam, you are not allowed to grind, my friend. That is not what this is about. You need Gedgif. And I said, what the fuck is that? And she said, you need to do this with grace, ease, joy, and flow, right? Remember that. Think about that. How can you approach this with the most amount of joy, right? Sales is not about getting somebody to say yes. It's just about getting somebody to make a decision. You need to celebrate the yeses, and you need to celebrate the nos. And you need to celebrate all of the times in your life that you've been able to get somebody a sale, like to have a sale. And she helped us really reframe what a sale is, because we think about it in financial terms, but it's about so much else.
Yeah, I remember you making a joke afterwards, and you were like, I made a sale when I got you.
I said I'm a fucking damn good salesperson, because I sold this gem of a human being to be my life partner. So I must be a pretty good salesperson. But anyways, the Gedgif is what I'm getting at, right? Like, my struggle right now is I know the morning routine's good. I know I need to prioritize myself, but my body is telling me to just fucking go, because like we have so much opportunity in front of us. And so I'm really trying to focus on Gedgif and implementing that, and implementing the sustainable way to pursue opportunities, but prioritize myself and like my self-care and my mental health as well.
Yeah. Guys, real life coffee date right here. I'm going to tell you exactly what you tell me all the time. Do one thing every morning. You don't have to do your whole morning routine every morning, but do one. Start with one. If that's waking up at 5, great. If that's waking up at 6 or 7 and then doing your meditation or doing your reading or doing your workout, pick one, do that. And then just get the snowball going.
And then habit stack.
For anyone looking for great information on habits, breaking old habits, and reframing for new habits, their Diary of a CEO, he released a 2023 5 rules or 5 laws for breaking habits, I think is what it's called. I personally always use it. What are you making fun of my pinky?
I just need to stick it up. Sorry.
Okay. I've been holding it like this for I don't know how long. I know. But anyway, Diary of a CEO, 2023 5 rules for breaking old habits or something like that. It is a great tool if you're looking to actually be successful in creating new habits or replacing old habits. And replacing old habits is the key frame, and I'll leave you with that to go explore that.
And like always, that'll be in the description below, just like any other resources that we've mentioned that we think may be valuable. We'll put them in the description below. That way it's super easy for you to find and explore if you want. Second question, what are you most excited for right now? Don't overthink it. Right now, what are you most excited for?
Oh, I'm so excited to go see our new niece.
Oh my God, me too.
I'm so excited. So for everyone listening, and I hope MJ and Dina listen to this. Our friends just had a baby, and we are.
Her name is Aviana.
She's so cute. So it's their first, and this is close friends to ours. they are family. Like I've told them I'd give them a key to our house. They're welcome anytime. We are going to see them next week. And you talk about a busy week. I work 3 days and my days start early morning and I don't get off till sunset. So I will be getting off of work. I'll come home. I'll take a nap and then
I'll probably leave it.
Probably midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning.
We got to drive to Atlanta.
We got to drive to Atlanta, which is 3 hours, and they're an hour ahead of us. And then we get on a flight. Thankfully, it's a nonstop flight, and then we'll be there for 4 days, and then we come back on Saturday. And I'm pretty sure I'll work again the Sunday following. So it'll be a busy week, but we're so excited. Family's one of those things that just it lights me up so much. So that's something I'm so excited for. I'm so excited to see them. I'm also just excited to go spend some time with like your parents and Haley and them. Like I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited.
And Andre, I didn't forget about you, I promise.
Yeah, I'm excited to meet Aviana as well and to see MJ and Dina. And actually, by the time that this episode releases, it'll be a little bit after we go visit them.
We'll have to let them know.
We'll have to what?
I'll have to let them know that they're featured on a podcast.
Oh.
Aviana, you don't know what we're saying, but you're featured in a podcast.
Not even a month old and you're featured in a podcast. Let's go. Yeah. No, it a lot of times it comes down to people for you.
Yeah.
Because they're everything.
Yeah. I mean, look, like if you're in my circle, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know you're in my circle, because if you're in my circle, it means that you can call me. And I always have this rule. I have this rule with everyone in my circle. You call me twice, I call you back. I call you back, because if you call me twice, it means that you need to talk to me. Whether it's an emergency or not, I know that if you call me twice, I know that I need to pick up the phone and call you back. So, that's...
Bug just hit me in the face.
It came back over here, too. So, but yeah, I mean, it's not just about the amount of people. It's about the quality of people.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's family, and that's very, very, very close friends that are like family. Those are my immediate circles. And man, if you're in that, you got me, and you got me 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
What about you? What are you excited for?
Me?
You're probably going to say the same thing, but
no, I'm not going to say the same thing. You already said it. I wasn't even, I wasn't thinking that you were going to mention Aviana, but I thought you were going to mention the horseback riding tomorrow.
Oh, I am excited about that, but Aviana just takes a little bit of
I totally understand. That's no
she's
problem.
She's a baby.
I know she's a baby.
She's so cute.
I know.
But we are going horseback riding tomorrow, and it's your first time, and I'm so excited. Sorry.
Celebrating our second wedding anniversary, because on our anniversary we were both working very long days.
Very, very long days.
But yeah, horseback riding and sushi tomorrow. So
which you've never been horseback riding before.
No, I haven't. So I'm excited about that. What I'm most excited for is honestly to continue building momentum with you, and to... What the fuck are you laughing at?
I thought you were gonna say the curry from the sushi restaurant is honestly what I thought you were gonna say, and you did it, and I was like, well, he's being really genuine, and I did not think.
Yeah, thanks, babe.
So sorry. Okay.
All good. No, I'm really excited to just continue building the momentum and going along this path of self-discovery with you, because I think that we are doing a lot of really intentional things, a lot of things that bring us fulfillment, and I just don't know what's going to happen, but we're not going to stop. We're just going to keep going. So overall, that's what I'm really excited about. Getting more granular. Next week while we're in Windsor, I'm going to be doing 2 in-person podcasts, which I'm really, really looking forward to. I mean, this experience with you has been a lot of fun, and I'm excited to now be building up the my equipment to be able to do in-person podcasts and stuff. So I'm really, really excited for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a lot of fun. You're going
to have so much fun.
I know. We got 2 really, really cool stories that I'm going to be diving into with 2 close friends. So those won't come out until probably July, but what? No.
Okay. I thought she was going to be one of them.
No, I mean, she's always down to doing podcast
I know
episodes.
she's always down to do
But why
it.
did you whisper I don't
Because I'm not trying to give it away.
Oh, you
because I don't know
no,
when
it's-
this will. I don't know when those will air. Like after you interview.
Oh,
them.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. Maybe you're trying to like be like.
Be secretive?
Yeah.
No. Babe, we just had a whole conversation about our...
Well, okay, but there again, this is a different secret.
I know,
It's
I know.
like anticipation of the next amazing human that we introduce on this podcast, or that you introduce because it's your podcast.
Yeah,
not
no,
mine.
I'll tease it a little bit. One friend his name is Sean Penhale.
Oh.
Yeah, so he owns his own financial firm in Windsor, financial services firm, which is really cool. And yeah, we're gonna get into a pretty intense conversation with him. He actually was the one that found his uncle
Oh yeah.
when he committed suicide, or when he lost his uncle to suicide. And so we're going to talk a lot about that. And he was actually a really talented swimmer. Like when he was younger, he went to college for swimming. We'll talk about the experience with his uncle, and then how he's gone really from that to now owning his own financial services firm, because it's really, really cool what he's been able to do. And then the second conversation is with Frankie Reno, who is an ex-Canadian football player. He played in the Canadian Football League for a few years. And we're really going to break down, he said that there's really two phases of his life. One where he was really focused on becoming the man who he thought he had to become. And all of the sort of struggles that he faced during that, including feeling suicidal at times. And then the second phase of his life, becoming the man that he's always wanted in his life. Becoming the man that he's always wanted in his life. So
That sounds like those sound like two really, really powerful men that I think is going to be such a great addition to your podcast.
yeah, I'm really excited. And again, just people that are committed to having open, honest, vulnerable conversations, to be on this mission of kind of rewriting what we see on social media, and just giving people, hope.
Yeah. Showing
People that you're not alone in your struggles, and that struggle can come in so many different forms. And that shit's going to happen in life, but it's not about what shit happens. It's about how you respond to it and what you make from it.
100%.
Right. And so I'm really, really looking forward to those conversations.
I'm so excited for you.
Yeah, me too. Alrighty. Well, folks, that is a wrap on our second year of marriage. Like I said, this is the right way to do it or the wrong way to do it or whatever. It's just one more open, honest, vulnerable, transparent conversation about our relationship, in hopes that it inspires somebody to be a little bit more intentional about theirs.
100%. We are by no means any experts, but we are definitely trial and erroring, and we might as well share those out loud.
100%. That's the thing. We wish that we had, more resources for young couples talking about their relationship. And so why not us?
We're going to give it to you. We're going to give you the resources.
And of course, we'd absolutely love to hear from you. So I'll put our information below as well. If you're, listening on Spotify, Apple, whatever other podcasting platform, if you enjoyed the episode, absolutely consider leaving a review below. That would go a long way to support the channel. But also, I'll put our contact information in the description, so that if you do want to reach out with any comments, questions, or you just want to chat about like what you're experiencing, like we'd love to hear from you. And then if you're watching on YouTube, obviously you see the beautiful background and everything, and you can leave us a comment in the YouTube comments so that we can reply to you. And of course, again, our contact information will be below. So if you want to reach out, you know where to find us.
Yeah.
All right. Till next time.
Till next time. Oh no. I'm gonna grab it.
Pachoo!
Pachoo! Melakalikimaka.
Is the say Merry Christmas. Have a very, very Merry Christmas. I love you.
I love you too.
You're my person.
You're my person.
Bye.
Bye.